Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Alongside Ezra Ginsburg, alongside Dave Minuk, I am your host, Drew Mindell. We welcome everyone to the program. So nice to see so many of you bright and early joining us on this Saturday, the 5th day of the month of June. Our apologies for starting a couple of minutes late. Ezzy and I were having a deep, intense conversation about our respective children's pediatricians. And, we can keep that going, but I have a hunch there's not very many people who are interested in knowing who our kids go to for their annual checkups. Dave, you can be the deciding vote here.
I'm not even remotely interested, so I would rather we start the show.
Okay. Just saying, maybe we could give some hints. Maybe we could get some deep insights. No, nothing. No, Dave's got no interest in that at all.
To be honest with you, it may be more interesting than a hockey game we all watched last night, but
it's not too far off, I gotta say. At least there'd be emotion. At least when our kids go to the doctor, usually there's some emotion involved. Maybe there's some tears, maybe there's some high fives, maybe there's some hugging afterwards, but there certainly wasn't any emotion in last night's Jets Canadiens game, allegedly a playoff game, but boy, oh boy, that was not an entertaining contest last night. We'll talk about that this morning. We'll talk about the Scheifele suspension. We'll talk about games 3 and 4 coming tomorrow and Monday night as well. Undoubtedly, a busy Saturday morning in store for us here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. While it's so nice to see so many of you, what we ask from you is two things. One, keep the conversation in the chat nice and clean. You can disagree, but do so respectfully. That's what we request. And two, while you're here, smash the like button. Give us a thumbs up. That's what we want from you. That's all we ask of you while we provide you with this hockey content each and every Saturday morning and after each and every Winnipeg Jets hockey game. Gentlemen, good to see you both. It has been a whopping 10 and a half hours since we last got together, but it is still nice to see your shining, smiling faces.
Yeah, what's up, boys? And it's great to see everybody back. As you mentioned, we went on off air, and I was going to say, we weren't able to watch the majority of the Vegas-Colorado game because we were obviously doing the post-game show. But, you turn that game on. I was texting Dave that third period, and I'm not sure if you watched any of it, Drew, but that third period was about as good as it gets in terms of hockey. And I couldn't help but think, guys, as I was watching that third period, right, and Colorado goes up 2-1 on the Mikko Rantanen goal, and 17 games with straight games with a point is absurd. And I don't think enough people in the hockey world are talking about that because he's one game away from tying Wayne Gretzky. So that's pretty good company there. So just wanted to get that in there. Rantanen has been unbelievable for Colorado, but you're watching that game, Dave, and you're thinking this should be the conference final. This should not be a second round game. It kind of reminds you guys going back to when Pittsburgh and Washington would play in the second round, right? Because you knew one of those
Jets
teams
and the Predators.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, the Jets and the Predator series was equally as entertaining. The top two teams in the league, number 1 versus number 2.
Either today, apparently the first, second period weren't great. That third period, in contrast, yesterday's Canadiens game was. It was just dark.
Ezzy's having some technical difficulties, so we'll get Ezzy to fix that up while Dave and I will carry the show on our backs like we do each and every Saturday anyways. Right there, Dave M., I'm sure Ezzy couldn't hear that comment, so hopefully he won't get too mad at me. But it really is the contrast, and we're going to talk about the Jets and the Habs because that's obviously everyone's focus. But last night's hockey game was just duller than dishwater. It was just it just wasn't it wasn't commensurate with the hockey that's being played on the 3 other playoff series at this point in the season. And that's why everyone says that, whoever wins this Jets Habs series is just going to be fodder for whoever wins the Avalanche Golden Knights series. And I have no disagreement with that comment. The Jets didn't get any offense last night. They made it very easy on the Montreal Canadiens to sit on that 1-goal lead. The Habs take that 1-0 lead on the Tyler Toffoli shorthanded goal after just an odd sequence, by Kyle Connor, who just really doesn't do anything to contribute or prevent the scoring chance. He back checks hard, which is fine, but it was an ineffectual back check at best. And, clearly, I think
you just took the wrong guy, Drew.
Well, yeah, that
Should have stayed with
Lehkonen,
and I didn't. Yeah, and I just wanted to say I didn't understand Paul Maurice's, like, obviously Maurice is not going to throw Connor under the bus, but what he said was something along the lines of Connor didn't think he could keep up with Lehkonen, and I'm thinking to myself, like, Connor's a pretty good skater. He's one of the best skaters on the Jets. Lehkonen's pretty speedy as well, but if you watch the replay, like, Connor's right there. And what ended up happening, first off, if Tyler Toffoli didn't score, Lehkonen would have been wide open. It was just poor defensive coverage.
Yeah, which really shouldn't be that much of a surprise, Dave, because Kyle Connor is not known for his defensive abilities, certainly at all. He's known as a goal scorer. And it was a bad night for Kyle Connor, I would say, because for a team like the Jets, who are desperate for offense, they are desperate to get the win so they don't go down 2-0. They're without Mark Scheifele. Kyle Connor needed to step up last night, and he was noticeable for all the wrong reasons. Starting there, doesn't do anything on the offensive side of things whatsoever. It was just a bad night for the highest paid Winnipeg Jets forwards because they weren't able to elevate their game when the Jets needed to elevate it the most.
Yeah. Just to quickly mention that Colorado game, because Ezzy's right. Like, we turned that on, and look, there's nothing we can do about it right now, but based on the stats of what is going on in our province. But I have to tell you, like, what a different environment. Even just forget the hockey. The hockey was incredible, but the environment with the Phil building and stuff like that. So, it really does seem like a tale of two cities, and the hockey itself, though, was like night and day. Like, it really was night and day. I mean, I called that probably one of the most boring playoff games I've ever seen in my entire life. And it obviously resonated because about 500 people agreed with me on Twitter. Not saying that necessarily proves that I'm right, but it
might mean you're in bad company.
Yeah, well, I would suspect not. But the point is that, and then I flipped on that after Ezzy and I wrapped up our post game show, and I watched the Colorado and Vegas, and I thought to myself, like, wow, like, there's more action in that 1 minute. That one period, that third period which we watched, was better than any period we watched, in the playoffs in the North Division, I would suspect. So, so getting to the game itself, like I said, you needed guys to step up. We know in the bubble in Edmonton last year, in Calgary, you lose Mark Scheifele, Patrick Laine, and Mason Appleton, and you have to insert 3 new guys into the lineup for game 2, and you scratched and clawed your way to a 3-2 win in the game 2, and obviously they ultimately lost the series because that it's hard to sustain those types of losses, but. We just didn't see, I guess Montreal played the style that they play, which is a fairly boring, smothering style of hockey. So that's fine. That they'll be able to do that, and they have Carey Price in net. Not, as we discussed last night on the postgame show, that he was particularly tested by the Winnipeg Jets. I think the number on Natural Stat Trick said they had 5 or 6 high danger chances to the Habs 11 or 12.
They had 2 after 40 minutes. The Jets did.
Yeah, I mean, the third period is when the Jets put on a little bit of a push, of course, because you're trying to tie the game. They put Neil Pionk with Josh Morrissey. They were trying, obviously they bumped Matthew Perreault down onto the third line, but guys, I like I said, that was kind of a game that you anticipated the Jets were going to be able to make that characteristic push. Okay, you're not in the game, you're not dominating the game, but you have enough firepower to get you back into the game. And that's what we've seen with this team traditionally. And we even saw it in the Edmonton series where they were able to. And I think I saw the stat that so far they've trailed in this series to Montreal, for 75 minutes of the first 2 games or something like that. And then the other 25, it was tied. So it hasn't been a banner series for the Jets, but there wasn't one in which they were
hang on. I got to stop you. That equals 100. They played 120 minutes.
Well, I mean, in theory,
I love you, but now
Drew, there was 20 minutes that was actually lost where nobody was playing. That's why Dave didn't include
I'm just telling you what I
know what your point is. Your point is that the Habs have controlled the series on the scoreboard. The Jets have not led for a second of the 120 minutes so far. And the best they've done is had it tied for maybe a quarter, if that, of the 120 minutes that have been played.
So and look, you just have to figure things out. I mean, if the blueprint that you created against the Oilers isn't being successful against the Habs, then what you need to do is change your blueprint. and you have to evolve. And that's kind of what we've talked about is the key for this Jets team is when you realize something isn't working, you can say, oh, well, we were in the game. But like, again, we talked about it. The shots that they got on Carey Price, he saw them. There was nobody in front of the net, nobody creating any chaos. It's interesting because chaos was a word that was thrown out a lot. Like, we have to create chaos.
Sure.
But they didn't. And so you're watching that game and you're thinking to yourself, like, why is Adam Lowry not parked in front, using his body to, clear out the defenders and create and, take away Carey Price's eyes? The one chance I was thinking was it Neil Pionk who took the shot and Blake Wheeler was just a little, like about a half a second
on the power play.
Yeah, on the power play.
On the third period power play. The only shot the Jets had on that third period power play.
Which was, the power play was atrocious. So, probably shouldn't be even referencing it. But at the end of the day, you need to take away Carey Price is too good a goaltender for shots from, 15 or even 100 feet to beat him, clean shots. So you're going to have to take away his eyes. You're going to have to score a dirty goal. Get someone in front. And they had a few opportunities where there was a little bit of chaos, but not enough to actually create what they needed, that sustained element to get them in this game.
Look, it's not like we're telling the Jets or suggesting anything that they themselves don't know, Ezzy. They know that they need to make it difficult. They need to make it harder on Carey Price. But the truth is, with Montreal's defense and the size that they are and how they defend the front of the net very well, it's difficult to go into those areas. It's not an easy place to go. The Jets needed more will to go there. To get in front of Carey Price, to influence his eyes, as the saying goes. They weren't able to do it last night. That's not to say that, tomorrow night they won't be able to do it, because I think they know, you're down 2-0. There is no tomorrow if you're down 3-0. There's no other opportunity. The Jets have to play their best game of the playoffs tomorrow night. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. They need to make this a series again. And then on the second half of a back-to-back, well, anything can happen, because that's going to be a lot of hockey for both teams. And then you compound that with the hockey that Montreal already played in their 7-game series against Toronto.
I think it's 11 games in 19 days or something like that.
Something like that. You would think it's eventually going to catch up to them. But that's why Game 3 is is clearly the tipping point.
It's the whole series.
It's the whole series. It's the whole rest of the season for the Jets. If you don't have your best effort of the series, probably of the season, to be honest, if you don't have your best game, that you've played in a long time in Game 3, then you might as well not have it in Game 4, because it's not going to matter. The Jets need to know that. And I'm sure they do. I'm not telling them anything that's earth-shattering or that anyone in the chat also doesn't know. It's just a matter of having...
Drew Palmaris is online. He says that's really insightful, and he appreciates it. Now he knows what to do against the Habs in Game 3.
Feel free to take that, Paul. You don't even have to give me credit for it. You can use that entirely on your own. But the Jets just need to do it. It's a matter of will. How to do it. It's just a matter of being able to execute it, being able to fight through the big bodies of Ben Sherratt and Shea Weber and Joel Edmondson and the trees that the Montreal Canadiens have in front of their net playing defense. The Jets just have to find a way to do it, Ezzy.
Yeah, Jeff Petrie too. Like, he's such an underrated defenseman. I agree with you 100%, Drew. I mean, they have to find ways to get to Carey Price to score goals. Look at, like, Carey Price and the Habs are doing to the Jets what they did in those last 2 games versus the Leafs, right? They scored, 3 goals? They scored in the last 2 games against the Canadiens. The Leafs, of course, and so you're not going to score 4 or 5 goals a night against the Habs. Like, it's most likely not going to happen. You might maybe, do that in 1 game, but that's not the type of series this has been. It's going to be, a 2-1, 1-0 type of series. And things might change, but I don't think there's anything that would indicate it's going to change. So I agree with Dave. And, back to those power plays, like, you remember, guys, on the first power play, like, Adam Lowry was out there and he had a chance. He didn't get a very good shot off, but, like, to me, that's something that you got to have, not only on the power play but even strength. Like, guys like Adam Lowry, Andrew Kopp, Mason Appleton. You saw Matty Perreault with some good net drive. Like, he was trying to get to the net. He's obviously a smaller player, so it's not as easy for him as it is for guys like Lowry and Appleton and Kopp, but That's what you're going to have to see. And, on the post-game show, we talked about like the lack of high danger chances. Like, you remember early in the third period, I want to say it was like 30 seconds, a minute in, when Connor fed Dubois with that little pass in tight, and Dubois didn't get a very good shot off. I think it actually like went right in the middle of Price. He just, he was in perfect position. But those are the types of, I kept saying this last night, like the small area plays. Like, you're going to have to find ways to create offense, not off the rush. Montreal does not give up a lot off the rush. And like, how many odd man rushes have the Jets had this series? I don't think they've had one. I really don't think they've had like 1 2-on-1, and Montreal just doesn't give you a lot. So you're going to have to find different ways.
The only one would have been Adam Lowry's shorthanded goal. I mean, in game one.
Yeah,
I mean, other than that,
of course, yeah.
And that's not anything scheme wise the Jets have done. That was a fortuitous bounce, and Lowry made a great play. Which you don't have to apologize for that, but that's the reality of the situation. The Jets have been way too much for the first two games, Dave, on the perimeter. Everything's been to the outside. They need to, as we, the dirty areas, the cliche notwithstanding, they need to shoot a puck that bounces off a leg and goes in, because the Harlem Globetrotter style goals just aren't there in the playoffs. They're not there except for the rarest of situations, or if you're the entire Colorado Avalanche team, I suppose. But for the most part, it needs to be a shot when you have an opportunity to shoot. When you look like you're in a decent position to shoot, you fire that puck, you fire it hard, and if you score on it, great. But also, it might create a rebound. It might create chaos in front of the net. There's been no chaos from the Jets' perspective, Dave, and that's what they need to focus on. Obviously, they head out to Montreal later today. That's what you need to create for games 3 and 4, Sunday and Monday.
You know what? I mean, Drew, just to look at that a little further, if you watch going back to that Vegas game, where did Jonathan Marchessault shoot that shot from that beat Grubauer? Shot it from basically behind the Colorado net after a rush attempt.
Such a clever play, Dave.
And yeah, so he wasn't
smart.
trying. He wasn't trying for a highlight reel goal. He figured, okay, I'm just going to fire it on net and hope something happens. Ties the game, and then I think it was like 45 seconds later, the tip by Pacioretty, beats Grubauer, and they take a 3-2 lead, and they end up holding on. So you're right. I mean, it doesn't have to be pretty. It has to. It just has to. We keep going back to this.
It is XXL, Chad. That's right. $2.20 right here.
The Habs.
Ezzy, since when can you afford $2.20?
I've been saving up. I actually found some change in my couch.
So the point is that the Jets need to do that, Drew. I mean, again, it's getting away from this idea of the perfect goal. It's changing that. Like I said, you have to evolve. If what you're doing against the Montreal Canadiens isn't working, if they're smothering, your breakout attempts. I mean, look, guys, the passing was atrocious yesterday. Everything was behind the guy. Like, there was you killed your own momentum with those passes yesterday. I can't tell you how many times I watched and counted, and I thought, how are you supposed to gain any speed through the neutral zone or your own zone if the pass is behind you? So the team looked discombobulated, and you can't say that moving, like, Paul Stastny hasn't played, and you're removing Mark Scheifele. Obviously, that's a major piece. I don't minimize the loss of your top center and suggest that's not a big deal for the team, because it is. But at the same time, these guys, majority of these guys have all played together, and the passing just wasn't crisp. Like I said, I don't think the Jets are out of it. Tomorrow's game will absolutely determine the series. There's no question, and that's not a insight that is something that 100% of the people who are in the chat or general hockey fans or anyone else doesn't understand how important tomorrow's game is. But like I said, the Jets team that we thought we saw against the Oilers doesn't seem to be the team that we're seeing against the Montreal Canadiens. And again, changing your style based on your opponent isn't a bad thing. And the Jets have had more than enough time to have adjusted. I don't care. Look, I don't care if you're saying, oh, well, they were ready for Toronto. Well, they had more than enough time, and they're a professional hockey team that has, a lot of employees to watch game film on both teams. So they should have been prepared for what Montreal was going to bring. Of course, they weren't ready. They weren't knowing that they were going to lose Mark Scheifele for 4 games. But like I said, you go back to the bubble and know that was the whole point we talked about throughout the course of the season, right? Was this idea of guys being interchangeable based on your experience in the bubble, knowing that you could lose a critical piece of your team and having to be able to, or 3, and being able to adjust. And like I said, you can't absorb a loss of a Mark Scheifele, a top center, number 10. Like, it's not a big deal because it's huge. It's massive for this Jets team, but it's your reality. And if you can't adjust to reality, then you're going to be on the outside looking in, lamenting that your season's over.
Saturday morning, you're listening, you're watching, you're chatting with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms. I see him in the chat, he being Frank Zappia, so it's very appropriate that this portion of the show is brought to you by Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty, official realtors of Illegal Curve Hockey. When 95% of your clients come via referral, it shows your commitment to honesty, integrity, and a total dedication to client satisfaction. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, come shake hands with Frank and Mauro Zappia online at zappiagroup.com.
So I saw a few Zappia Group signs. I was in the West End yesterday, taking my daughter to her doctor's appointment at the Manitoba Clinic near HSC. So I saw at least 3 Zappia Group signs on the way there. And I know that Frank and Mauro are very busy right now, so I wanted to get that in there. But, I just wanted to start off, guys, with saying, like, you have to attack with speed. And I know that's become a cliche in the modern game. But to Dave's point, like, when you hear, the neutral zone and why it's important to gain speed through the neutral zone, it's because if you come through slow and your passes aren't crisp, most likely your zone entries aren't going to be good, right? Like, it's all related. Speed through the neutral zone, zone entries. If you're forced to dump the puck in, you got to go get the puck. Why is a forecheck important? Because if you don't establish a forecheck, the other team's defensemen are going to have, and forwards are going to have way too much time breaking out the other way, right? So it's about pressure and speed, and that's what the Jets have to get back to. And yes, Scheifele is a guy that obviously likes to hang on to the puck. He's a fast player, but you've got other fast players, guys like Nick Ehlers is a fast player, Kyle Connor's a fast player, Pierre-Luc Dubois is a fast player. Andrew Kopp, I don't think gets enough credit for his speed. Even a guy like Adam Lowry doesn't necessarily look like he's fast, but let me tell you, from a guy who wasn't a very fast skater on the Varsity View A1 Falcons, he's a fast skater. So, I don't buy this kind of narrative that Montreal is completely shutting the Jets down. I just don't think the Jets are playing anywhere close to the level they were playing at in the Edmonton series, and they have to get there. You're 100% right, Drew. You mentioned it. Like, this team has another gear to get to.
Well, to Dave's point, what he said earlier, when you don't generate a good first pass out of your zone, and I'm not talking about because of Montreal's forecheck or something like that. When you just don't generate, it's not crisp leaving your own zone, or you have to stall in the neutral zone, there's not going to be any speed. It starts in your own zone with generating speed, and the Jets have just failed in terms of getting those crisp outlet passes, because that's where they're dangerous. That's where you can put the Montreal Canadiens on their heels, is by coming through the neutral zone with speed. And they did not do that. Look, the only time that I can really think of them generating much speed through the neutral zone yesterday was Nikolai Ehlers, and it led to the Shea Weber tripping penalty. So, yep. I mean, you can see cause and effect. Cause being, great speed, effect, tripping penalty. That's what the Jets need to focus on. They need to be attacking in waves with speed, yes. Because once you slow down in the neutral zone, you're playing right into the Montreal Canadiens' hands, because you don't have another real option. You don't have an alternative to really generate offense if it's not through speed through the neutral zone. And that's what we've learned about this Jets team over the last number of years. That's how they succeed. They succeed off the rush. But when you succeed off the rush, and when you have to win off the rush, that means you have to start by getting crisp passes and getting that speed from your own blue line into the opponent's zone.
Yeah, and I want to get Dave M in here, but that would be, for me, to further your point, Drew, that would be a reason to bring in Ville Heinola, right? And I don't want to get anybody's hopes up that Heinola is going to come in for Game 3 or any in this series, but that would be the simple argument for getting Heinola into the lineup, because all due respect to a guy like Jordy Ben's he's get the puck, make the pass quick, like get it out. Like Jordy Ben's not a guy that's going to generate speed in his own zone and in the neutral zone. Heinola is a guy that can move the puck. Like, he is the prototypical puck moving defenseman. Dave M will tell you better than me about how he can move that puck based on what he was doing with the Moose. So that would be the main argument for me. But, Josh Morrissey, Neil Pionk, even Tucker Poolman. I mean, these guys can move the puck, but it's going to, take a five-man effort here. And I think the Jets have just looked too slow. Like, it seems like we're kind of, dummying down, but like they really have looked like a slow team. And I don't buy that they're a slow team. So, they're going to have to come out there in game three, and they're
a slow player is Eric Stahl when he was trying to get in on that breakaway late in the game yesterday. You could see that he's a guy who doesn't have the speed necessary. The Jets aren't slow. Nate Thompson and Trevor Lewis aren't the fastest guys anymore, but they're certainly on the back end of their career. But the Jets' top nine, when the passes are crisp and when the execution is right and when it starts from their own zone going towards the Habs zone, they can be a fast team, and that's how they have to execute, and they just haven't done it so far this series. Are they able to flip that switch? Are they able to start doing it? Well, the rest of their season certainly depends on it, Dave.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, look, we've talked about it consistently. They've been a much better road team than they have a home team this season. So we'll see if they can, create some of that road magic. They were able to start well in the Edmonton series, obviously on the road, and they're going to have to. I mean, there's no more. You want to talk about cliches? There's no more time to talk about cliches. Then it doesn't get any more important than tomorrow night. And we're going to see the Jets are practicing at 11 o'clock today in Winnipeg. Then they're going to fly to Montreal. So stay tuned to AlleoCurve.com to watch we'll still be on the air, but we'll stay tuned and we'll have the playoff practice report, which you can see all the media availability. You can see all the updates from the skate. But we'll see. Is Paul Stastny going to be ready to return? I mean, that's a big question mark for this Winnipeg Jets team. We know Dylan DeMello is not an option. He's got a soft tissue injury, according to Paul Maurice. And let's be realistic, guys. I was thinking about this. When Paul Maurice is telling you that the nature of someone's injury,
that means he's out for a while.
That means he's probably out. When Paul Maurice says he's more than day-to-day, says it's going to be at least a week, and it's soft tissue injury, when he's specific like that in the playoffs, like, to me, that means Dylan DeMello is not coming back. I mean, I could be wrong, but it's very unusual for Paul Maurice to be being
He's more forthcoming in the playoffs than he is in the regular season.
Well, he's not because, I mean, let's think about this. He hasn't talked about Paul Stastny in any way, shape, or form.
Well, he's more forthcoming about Dylan DeMello than we've seen during the regular season a lot of times.
I don't even think we know if Stastny's upper body or lower body, do we?
No, we don't know anything about Stastny. Nobody knows anything about Stastny. But so that's my point. My point is, when he's being forthcoming in that regard,
it's his body.
Exactly. And then it's a sign of something. And so, so I mean, like, you're not getting the point of that kind of long statement was that you're not getting Dylan DeMello back. So that's not a reality for this Jets team, despite the fact that he and Josh Morrissey have played so well together. That to me is one of the toughest breaks. And again, this is more about the Jets being able to generate. Dylan DeMello is not that guy. You're not looking for offense from Dylan DeMello. That's not what he does. That's not his bag. But there's no question about it that, this team, to the point that we've made consistently through the first half an hour of the show, is that they're not generating, they're not crisp, they're not on the same page, which is unusual because, and you really do wonder, right? That whole rest versus rust, and people are going to say, oh, that's an excuse. Well, guys, I mean, this doesn't look like the same team, and Montreal is different, right? As he talked about it on last night's show, Montreal played their four lines across the board almost evenly, and Edmonton doesn't do that. Edmonton runs Draisaitl and McDavid for 80% of the game, and the other guys get the remaining. Well, Drew, according to the math I used earlier, like 45% of the game. So it wouldn't be a function of that in this series. But like I said, it to me, it's all about in-game adjustment and adjustment throughout the course of a series. And if you're unable to do so, well, that falls on it falls on the coaching staff for not drawing up a good game plan, and it falls on the players for not executing.
Let's take our first commercial break. When we come back, more Jets and Habs talk. Our buddy Scott Billeck is going to join us. Much more to come. You're listening, you're watching, you're chatting with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey, Drew. Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go...
We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
While you can't always count on your team winning, nor your favorite player scoring, one thing you can always count on is Bernstein's Deli. They've expanded their services because the team at Bernstein's Deli wants to accommodate your needs and keep you safe. Open Tuesday to Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. to serve you. Head to your phone, in-store or online to shop for groceries or order meals from the restaurant, like the legendary Illegal Curve sandwich. Just go to bernsteinsdeli.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Saturday morning, welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Dave Manouk not able to get back in time. You know, he just had to go talk to Ezzy that desperately. He slides into the screen, but not under the wire like he usually does. That's okay, Dave. We'll find you later.
Drew.
What's that, Ezzy?
We have to do a secret handshake.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys do during the break, but that's between you guys, and that's not my thing.
I was enjoying Dave come flying into the screen. That's all.
There you go. This segment of the show brought to you by Dr. Les Rikus and the team at Linden Market Dental Center, official dentist of Illegal Curve Hockey. Don't be an Ezzy. Don't be an Ezzy. Always wear a mouth guard and give yourself peace of mind protection as well as facial, teeth, and mouth protection. To make an appointment to get your teeth to ting, visit lindenmarketdentalcenter.com. As you all can see, we have our first guest of the show. He's a good friend of ours. He's a man that I'm pleased to call a friend, a great reporter, and a quality, top-notch human being. Our buddy Scott Billeck joins us in the bottom left of the corner. Scotty, nice to see you, buddy. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you guys?
We're doing fine and dandy. Obviously, you know, the day after the night before, talking about the Jets and the Habs, and I believe you were the one who tweeted after game one, or you asked Paul Maurice after game one about if the Jets needed more playoff edge to their hockey after what you described game one as more of a regular season feel. I think I followed up on that a little bit by tweeting that last night's game had more of an exhibition feel than it did anything playoff hockey related.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, right? I mean, I thought about what Blake Wheeler said after last night's game, and pretty much all the players saying they kind of took a step forward. And, you know, you kind of question that when you don't score a goal in a playoff game. And I looked at it as, like, I get what they're saying. They got back to a certain defensive style of game. They didn't allow any even strength goals. You know, they basically the only goal that was scored last night was on a pretty brutal play by Kyle Connor, a flyby where he should have at least taken out Tyler Toffoli some way. Well, you know, the thing is, like, you got to get a stick. You have to do something because Josh Morrissey on that goal is set. He's ready to block the shot, and Toffoli's not going to toe drag around and make that move because Morrissey already has it. But because Kyle Connor comes in and does it, Toffoli makes his move, rips his shot past Connor Hellebuck. It's an ugly goal. Like, that's not what you want to see in the playoffs. I do feel like the Jets played. Looking back, they played a little bit better than they did in game one in terms of the defensive game. But the problem is the lapses that happened led to Connor Hellebuck having to be unbelievable again, right? And you won't look at that game and say, oh, he made, these massive saves. I mean, Carey Price probably made nicer save, and the nicest save of the game probably came from Neil Pionk, if we're being honest. But, I think that part of the issue is the 2-on-1s that are still being generated by the other teams. And then, like, the one thing that I look to, and just the kind of the lapse of where, like, the playoff judgment, where you are, second period's coming to a close. There's about 10 seconds left. And Eric Stahl beats Josh Morrissey on a breakaway. I mean, that's like, okay, so what's going on here? Like, I mean, I get it, but you have to get to the point where those things aren't happening in a playoff game. And the Jets did a good job of that against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl in round one. It's now time to, figure that out now, because the difference between going out, down, or, scratching and clawing back to 2-1 on Sunday and going down 3-0, it is essentially life or death for the Jets playoffs. Only 4 teams have ever come back, I believe. I think it's still 4. Have only ever come back. Yeah, come back from 3-0 down. It's essentially an impossible task. The last team to do it was the Flyers against the Boston Bruins in 2010. Blake Wheeler knows that all too well, because he was on that Boston Bruins team that lost 4 straight after going up 3-0. So, and he obviously, there's always the possibility that it can happen. But what we've seen from the Jets over the first 2 games is just not enough to warrant the fact that they could do that. Connor Hellebuyck was sensational last night, but you have to give a goalie at least a run, if not 2 or 3 in a game, and they didn't do that last night. That last night was a type of game where you could have given Connor Hellebuyck just one goal, and he was shutting down the door just the same way that Carey Price was. I think Carey Price gets talked about more after that game because obviously they win. Connor Hellebuyck had a good game and really kept the Jets in, especially when they were kind of changing their risk profile in the third to try and generate a goal at the other end. Connor Hellebuyck shut the door on a couple of Nick Suzuki. There was a couple of Kotkaniemi had a couple of chances in that. So, I think, it wasn't, you can't say it was a good game when you don't score a goal. I get why they're kind of, doing that whole message of, we improved. And if you look at 5-on-5, they did, in that sense. But, they need some guys to step up. And I'm sure we'll get to, Pierre-Luc Dubois or whatever, but they need somebody to step up and really kind of take this series and make a big change. Because, again, like I said, I think, and we can talk about this too, but I think the Jets have a good chance of evening up the series on a back-to-back on Monday night if they can get that win in Game 3, just because of how the Montreal Canadiens have played their schedule. They played a 7-game series. Now they're playing 4 games in 6 nights. That's taxing, schedule. But the Jets have to make it taxing on the Canadiens, and I don't think they've really done that in the first 2 games.
And the Canadiens had the back-to-back in that 7-game series, right? They lost both of those back-to-back games against the Leafs, Scotty. So I agree with you 100%. And, a big storyline is obviously going to be, are the Jets able to create offense Sunday night in Game 3? But I wanted to ask you about Paul Stastny, because we talked about it on the post-game show. You were on with the boys, Kenny and Rennie. I'm sure you guys talked about it as well. If you kind of read more into what Paul Maurice was saying, I think you would agree there's a pretty good chance that Stastny is going to play Game 3 on Sunday night. So my question for you is, and this is getting a little bit into the line combination game, but does it make the most sense to you to keep Stastny up the middle, and then maybe you reunite Dubois with Ehlers, and then maybe Stastny centers Wheeler and Connor? Like, how if Stastny is able to go in Game 3, and it sounds like, as we said, there's a good chance he is going to be ready. How do you see Maurice deploying him?
Yeah, I mean, first I would caution anybody about Paul Stastny, because we just don't know in terms of playoffs. I mean, there was a time in here where Tyler Myers was day-to-day for about 5 months. And that wasn't even in the playoffs.
I remember that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously different situation, but every injury is a mystery in the playoffs, right? In terms of what it is, and often what it is, unless you can't decipher it from the ice, and then how long a guy is going to be out. But to get your point, I think Paul said they need him down the middle, right? Like, no offense to Andrew Kopp yesterday, but that line just didn't get it done. And Pierre-Luc Dubois struggled. I mean, my issue, and Pierre-Luc Dubois may be dealing with something himself. He obviously didn't play, every game in the first round too. He was injured as well, and came back. I wonder if he's still kind of dealing with the effects of that. Because it's all speculation. But you don't see that kind of power forward game from Pierre-Luc Dubois at the moment. There was many times last night where he's trying to turn the corner on the guy, and it's just not happening. He's getting separated from the puck. I mean, this is a guy that, when he came here, a lot of the criticism, that's come now, wasn't very valid early on, because he was a guy that was winning a lot of board battles. He was strong and that sort of thing. It hasn't been the case so far in these first couple of games. But I think Paul Stastny just brings, first of all, he brings experience, that calming presence, those little intangible things. But I think what he does is, like, he affects your lines in such a different way. Like, I mean, you had to realize that last night, without Stastny, without Mark Scheifele, the Jets had new line combos up and down the roster, right? Mm-hmm. I think they need Paul Stastny back, first of all. It's obviously a huge thing to have him just back in the lineup. I think it affects, could he play the top line? Possibly. I'm interested to see what Paul Maurice does in terms of, not a lot of chemistry between the lines getting put together as they were. Paul Stastny can play with Blake Wheeler. We've seen that. He can play with Nikolai Ehlers, and I think that might be more enticing for Paul Maurice to kind of, we know that line can produce, and that line's good, and that Stastny works with Ehlers really well. I thought that Ehlers played a good game last night, but I didn't think there was a lot of support for him on his line. And again, this isn't anything negative against Andrew Kopp. It's just he's a different. It's just he hasn't kind of developed that kind of chemistry with an Andrew Kopp, because at center, because Andrew Kopp hasn't played a lot of center with this team, and so
don't you think? Just going to say, Scotty, quickly, don't you think there's a good chance that Maurice is going to reunite Kopp, Lowry, and Appleton? Because we were talking about it on the post game show, and again, I'm not sure if you guys touched on it, you and Weber and Sean, but like, it seems like Kopp, Lowry, and Appleton is such a dependable line, good advanced stats, everything like that. Like, it seems like that's something that Maurice has in his back pocket that he can use for Game 3.
Yeah, and I think you could be right. I mean, again, this all hinges on Stastny playing. So yeah, of course. I mean, that's the thing. You could also have Kopp on the wing on that second line with Ehlers too. Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't know, because are you going to play Christian Vesalainen with Stastny and Ehlers? Does Vesalainen even stay in the lineup? I mean, we don't really know those things. I think Jansen Harkins probably comes out. I think then you could move Perreault back down to the fourth line. The problem that I'm seeing here is that, Montreal's fourth line outplayed Winnipeg's fourth line last night, and they have in this series so far. But the part of the issue with that is, okay, so if the Jets' fourth line can't play well against that fourth line, how do you get away from it? Where do you deploy your fourth line? And I think last night, obviously, Matthew Perreault, people will say he didn't have a great game last night. I thought he was creating a lot of chaos in the game. The penalty, Corey Perry sold that one pretty
brutal
good.
penalty.
That penalty call was terrible.
At the very least, Scotty, Perry should have gotten an embellishment penalty.
I agree, but I mean, this is what Corey Perry does, and give Corey Perry credit. He's a wily veteran who has been very effective in these playoffs. He's been effective against the Jets this season. This is what Corey Perry does. To be fair, I mean, there's been times where Nikolai Ehlers has sold the call and that sort of thing, right? Like, this happens all the time. Guys try and get calls, especially in the playoffs. You're trying, because special teams can be such a huge important factor. So, yeah, I think, going back to your question, I think, Kopp, Lowry, Appleton is a very good line. You want them playing. You want them, churning out offensive zone time. Like, that's what they're good. I thought they were very good in the first round, especially, trying to defend McDavid and Draisaitl, depending on what the matchup was that night. So, I think Paul Stastny fixes a couple of the problems up front, because you don't have to have all these, like, new line combinations and all that stuff. I think you can get back to at least some semblance of normalcy.
Scott Billeck is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show Saturday morning. We're live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms. You know Scott from his great work, of course, with the Winnipeg Sun, the Jets, and the Habs. Game 3 goes late tomorrow afternoon. The Illegal Curve post-game show follows that. And then following the Illegal Curve post-game show is the post-game show with Kenny and Rennie and Scott Billeck as well, also available on the YouTube.
Scott, when you were talking about Tyler Myers and the 5 months of day to day, and that's why I thought it was so curious that Paul Maurice said Dylan DeMello had when he was very specific, saying it was a soft tissue injury, and he said it would be longer than day to day, and about a week. And to me, that was like, well, that seemed to be a bit of a tell. So given that that he's not available for games 3 and 4, we saw in the third period, Paul Maurice put Neil Pionk with Josh Morrissey. Do you think moving forward that's what he's going to go to, or do you think he'll return to the more familiar Pullman, Morrissey, more Pionk and Forbert?
Right, Forbert. Yeah. It's an interesting question. I mean, I'd be all for Game 3 putting Ville Heinola in the lineup and seeing what happens. And here's the reason why. If you looked at the Jets' defense last night, they may have played a decent game in terms of 5-on-5 and all that, but in trying to get out of their own zone. Here's the thing. So I was watching Montreal quite a bit because of just the way that, the configuration of the rink where we sit in the press box. You see how good Carey Price was. And I don't worry, I'm not talking about Carey Price too much. But you see how good he is at distributing the puck to his defenseman, right? And so it helps so well with them breaking out. So you see these really snap Sherratt to a winger, Gallagher, whoever, out of the zone. Shea Weber to a winger out of the zone. The Jets didn't have a lot of that. A lot of it was, just trying to give it to maybe Ehlers or somebody trying to skate it out. I thought Logan Stanley was pretty good at, getting pucks out of the zone, just making that first outlet pass. But the Jets need a puck-moving defenseman back there right now, and they don't have one. And, they have Logan Stanley, but I'm not sure how much they trust using him enough that he's as effective at doing that for the entirety of a game. And so I think, you can't, I don't know how you kind of go. So you put Tucker Pullman back with Josh Morrissey, and then by the end of the game, you have Pionk with Morrissey because it's just not working there. You obviously need to find a goal, but, and Neil Pionk and Josh Morrissey can find offense, but they're not as offensively inclined at this point because of what they have to do at the other end. I like the idea of putting Ville Heinola into this game, pairing him with Josh Morrissey, taking Jordy Ben out of the lineup. Excuse me. I didn't think that Jordy Ben had a great game last night. Fair to him, he hasn't played in a while. So that's always going to be tough. And Ville Heinola would have the same thing. I think the motivation's different for Ville Heinola. I'm not saying that Jordy Ben didn't have the motivation to come in and do something, but I just think that here's your opportunity. You still have one game in hand when it comes to him and his entry-level slide and all that. So put him in and see what he does. One of the best games that Josh Morrissey played this season was with Ville Heinola against Toronto. And I think you saw last night Josh Morrissey wasn't playing the same way that he did in the first round when he was with Dylan DeMello, because it doesn't work with him and Tucker Pullman. It's a different game. I think Josh Morrissey feels like he has to be a little more defensive. I don't think there's just cohesion between him and Pullman in terms of a pairing. Not nearly the same cohesion you saw with him and DeMello. And so give Ville Heinola a shot. I mean, at this point you're at a crossroads here. You have to win Game 3. It's a must-win, because the reason is very few teams have ever come back. I already said that, and so it's a must-win. You can't go down 3-0 to a team in the playoffs and expect to come back. You can win a game and get to 2-1, and then it's a new series at that point. You breathe life into a team. I do think that you can play then Forbert and Pionk together. You can keep that there, and then you can keep Stanley and Pullman. And I thought Stanley and Pullman were a pretty good, effective pairing in the first round, because Tucker Pullman playing less minutes in a reduced role is kind of where he needs to be, and he excels in that. So I think if you're trying to do You make the least amount of changes. What Paul Maurice has often said, when a guy comes in, he wants to make the least number of changes. I think you can do that by bringing Ville Heinola in, hard for me to say, and put him and pair him with Josh Morrissey, and then see where it goes. Yes, there's obviously risk in that, but the Jets need to take a risk at this point because of where they are in this series. I don't think you can look at game 2 and be like, oh yeah, we're just going to go back with that. And I'll look at some of the comments too. I agree that defense wasn't maybe the big issue last night. I think the problem was the defense just isn't generating anything right now. And because of the fact that your offense also isn't generating, you probably need to try and find something. I'm not saying Ville Heinola is coming in and scoring a hat trick, but I think what he does is provide that puck-moving presence that you don't really have at the moment. And I think you also...
I agree 100%.
Yeah, and I think you help Josh Morrissey too. I think Josh Morrissey plays a better game with Ville Heinola by his side than he has with Tucker Poolman. And right now you don't have Dylan DeMello, so I think you just have to try and make a change and kind of see if it works. The thing too, you put Ville Heinola in, it doesn't work, you can then make the change. You can put him down with Stanley, or you can move Pionk up and have Forbert with Heinola, whatever, right? But at the same time, if you don't try and do something new, I don't know how you start tiring out, putting pressure on guys like Sherratt and Weber, trying to tire out this Canadiens team who should be, relatively fatigued after a 7-game series. I just don't think the Jets have done enough to actually kind of force that issue. So I think what you need to do is try and force it. And by doing that, you need to starts in the defensive zone, trying to make those outlet passes, stretch the game, try and get quickly through the neutral zone, because, what we've seen from, it's like a pseudo trap game that the Montreal is playing, right? It's effective, boring, sure. It's effective. I mean, the New Jersey Devils in '95 won a Stanley Cup doing this.
I was about to say, is Jacques Lemaire coaching the Habs now?
Well, yeah, it's a different time, right? But at the same time, it's been effective against the Jets, and no more than last night. So you got to find your ways around that, and I think the best way to do that is by having a puck-moving defenseman that can kind of see in the way, have the vision that Ville Heinola has. I know, people are going to talk, and it's like, this is the, is he really going to make an impact? I do think he can make an impact in a game like this. So we'll see what happens.
To your point, Scott, I mean, the Jets are built on generating speed. They're built on speed coming out of their zone. They're built on speed out of their neutral zone. And when you can't make a good first pass, when you can't exit your zone with speed, you're not going to then generate that speed through the neutral zone the way Montreal is playing, because they're just standing 5 guys up there, or they're doing the 1-3-1, and they're saying, okay, you try skating through 5 of us, you're not going to be successful. That's why that first pass is so important, and that's what Dylan DeMello does so well. We know that he's not going to be an option, but he would, that's why I think Morrissey also looked better, is because they were able to generate that speed, able to generate that first pass. So maybe Heinola, who has got more of an offensive bent to his game, maybe he can generate that first pass, and then maybe that gets Connor going with speed. Because it's from my perspective, late in the game yesterday, until late in the game when the Jets were desperate, Dubois didn't have a shot and Connor didn't have a shot, and these are guys who are playing your top line minutes last night. That to me is inexcusable. It's on them to a large degree, but it's also on the fact that the Jets couldn't generate any speed to put them into a position to generate those shots.
Yeah, how many times did you see the Jets, come through the neutral zone, hit center ice, and just pound the puck in, from there? And I get it. Like, dump and chase is something that people have been taught often, right? You don't have an option, get pucks deep, go and win a board battle. You can't do that as much because in this NHL, I mean, you need to gain the zone with possession, especially if you're not going to win a lot of those board battles. And last night, I mean, this is what Montreal wanted the Jets to do. They wanted them to pound the puck in from there. Then Montreal's big dudes on defense would go win a board battle. They would make the outlet pass, and then the transition is the other way. It's. I can imagine
it's frustrating to watch, Scotty. It must be frustrating to play,
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I was just going to say. Like, I mean, how frustrating is it for the Jets to come through the neutral zone, even get it out of their zone, and then the only option that they really have is to rim it around the boards, and then hopefully that you can get it. And it's just like that's. And the other thing that does it, it stifles the ability for Nikolai Ehlers and Kyle Connor to kind of use their straight line speed and kind of make a play, right? And draw a couple defensemen to them so you can open up one of your wingers. And that's the other thing with the lines. I just didn't feel like there was enough chemistry. Just to go back to that one part about the lines, I didn't think there was enough chemistry in utilizing the speed of Ehlers or Connor, because I didn't think that Pierre-Luc Dubois was playing at that type of speed, or that Andrew Kopp was playing at that type of speed. So it's I think again Paul Stastny fixes several of those things, but at the same time you can't necessarily expect Paul Stastny to be in the lineup. I mean, yes, Paul Maurice hinted at that he could be a thing, but we don't know. I mean, Paul Stastny took the morning skate yesterday. Usually when a guy takes a morning skate, he's probably going to play. It was a game time decision. Obviously, he tried and couldn't go. So you have to come to the point where you may not have Stastny. So how are you going to beat the Montreal Canadiens with what you have? And then if Stastny comes in, you kind of go back to Old Faithful in a lot of ways and go from there. So yeah, it's an interesting situation, and I think that Paul Maurice has a lot on his hands here to try and figure out how. To get the pairings or the lines right, and who to play on defense at this point to try and, get through that neutral zone and get through the trap and try and find some offense.
Scott Billeck is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Saturday morning, we're live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms. The Jets into Montreal for Game 3 Sunday late afternoon. Game 4 goes Monday night. We'll have the Illegal Curve post-game show for you after both games. The Jets will either have their season end, or it'll be tied at 2-2, or they'll be down 3-1. Those are the only three options that are left for the Jets and the Habs with Games 3 and 4 Sunday and Monday night. Scott, always appreciate your time. Always appreciate your insight. We'll let you get on with your Saturday morning. The Jets skating in about an hour's time at the arena. We'll see if it's an optional. We'll see who's on the ice. We'll see if we can glean any insights into any potential roster changes for the Winnipeg Jets. Always appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks for all of your COVID coverage, Scotty, because I know that, it's we're about a year and a half into this, but you've done an incredible job. And
amazing
obviously we're
appreciate
towards
it.
the end of this, but you're my go-to source. Oh yeah, appreciate it. I think you're doing an awesome job.
For the record, Scott,
I don't understand sometimes how you cover both press conferences.
Well,
I see Dr. Atwell tweets, and then I see Paul Maurice tweets, but that's just because you're such a good journalist.
I had to step back from that a bit. It's been a little bit of it just becomes a bit too much at times.
I honestly, Scott, though, you do deserve a lot of credit for what you've done. I mean, I've said this to you privately, but I'll say it publicly as well. I've said it publicly on Twitter, but the job you've done is simply remarkable. I mean, I can't tell you how many of my friends. No, it's true. I'm not trying to just blow smoke. I'm telling you, like I find what you do to be such a valuable resource for people in Manitoba. I get so much information from your tweets. Sometimes I'll text you privately being like, what the heck is going on? But honestly, like so many people I know will tell me, oh, I saw what Scott Billeck said because I've referenced you to be a good source for information on people in our province on this.
And then you have to let them know, like, Scotty is our boy. We've been friends with Scott like since he was in Crecom, and
a long time ago now. Yeah.
Anyway, so the long story short is, Scott, you've done a remarkable job. It isn't easy what you do, but you've done a great job informing your fellow Manitobans, and you do deserve to be commended for what you've done.
Yeah, and I appreciate it, and I thank you for having me on these shows because it keeps me sane. I get to talk about hockey. And I'd rather talk about hockey than COVID. So, yeah. No,
Scotty, I was going to ask you, have you ever by accident asked Dr. Rusin or Dr. Atwell like a hockey
about this
question?
lineup changes?
Yeah, like have you ever by accident asked, like, Dr. Rusin, is Stastny playing for the Jets tonight?
No, sometimes you want to because the question you're going to ask isn't going to get the answer you want. So maybe just like have fun with it. But obviously those are, important press conferences. I've talked to Dr. Rusin, actually. He's a Habs fan. Yeah, so I mean, but I've talked to him privately about hockey a little bit in a couple of interviews that I've done with him. But yeah, it's different worlds, and it's interesting sometimes, even during this, that they've kind of crossed roads because of how even this past week with healthcare workers being allowed into the game and all that stuff. Which again, just if I know I'm going a little bit long here, but just to
go long,
we had nothing better to talk about, I assure you.
Yeah, keep going, man.
I think, and obviously, people in the chat weren't at the game last night. Dave was in the last couple of games, and it provides hope, right? And I know it's like, should you let the healthcare workers in? Shouldn't you? Blah blah blah. That's another debate. But I think the big thing was to see these people, and you can't really see them smiling, but they are, because they're wearing masks and all that. But I mean, they're sitting there, they're dancing, there was relief on the face of some of these people, and just joy, I guess, right? You can't always see it with the mask, but it's there. And yeah, I think it was nice to see fans in the building. I tuned into the Vegas Colorado game, after that, when I was walking out with Kenny and Sean last night from the game, and you see, I mean, those buildings are packed, and it's like, man, like
17,000 last night.
I know, like, how much do we all miss that, right? Like, I mean, how much because it's just the atmosphere. Like, we were in the building in 2014. We were in the building during the 2017-18 run, where it was just incredibly loud. Those are the things that you kind of miss, and part of it is just the people, right? I mean, it's just, there's joy there, right? There's hope, and I think you see a little bit of that with some of these. It's only 500 people in a 15,000 person rink. It's not a big rink to begin with by NHL standards, but just to see some people in there, kind of doing their thing, raising their towels, whatever. It's just nice to see, some healthcare workers getting, first of all, recognized for the life-saving work they've done over the last 15 months. Like, they're the real heroes here. They've saved lives. That's their job, right? And to see them get some, it's a tiny token of what they've done over the last 15. And just to see some fans in the building, yeah, it was a bit emotional in game one, and I think last night it was just happy to kind of see people again, right? I mean, I think that's the hardest part of this whole thing is you don't get to you see a lot of people, and just because the orders and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was nice to see people in the rink. It was nice to see people walking through the security gates and all that stuff again. It just varies, things that we never even thought about. You didn't even you took it for granted, right? People just walking through security to get into the game, and now it's like 15 months later, and yeah, you're seeing it again. It's like it's such a a foreign kind of thing to see it. It's so weird. And so, yeah, anyways, kind of a ranting there, but I'm just glad that people are starting to get in, and that, there is, a glimmer of hope right now.
Scotty, one of those fans was my sister-in-law, Leah. So I have to give her a shout out. She's an ICU nurse. So shout out to Leah. Sure. She was at game one.
Yeah. Anybody that came through there everybody's deserving, right? I mean, you would wish that all the healthcare workers could go, because And the reality is they can't, because of, we're in a bit of a dire situation right now in hospitals and that sort of thing. And people have to work, and they're working double shifts, and talk to a lot of nurses, a lot of doctors throughout this. And it's rough, man. It's rough to hear some of the stuff that they've gone through. They've gone through a lot. I mean, I know you guys are giving me credit for my coverage and all that. And yeah, I appreciate that. And it's just, I hope people can understand the work that healthcare workers have done through this, because having talked to a lot of them, they've gone through hell and back. And for a lot of them right now in this third wave, they're still in that hell, trying to, get through it again. And so, yeah, anyways, I hope, that's just kind of the message I wanted. I think there's a bit of hope there to see people in the stands, and I hope people can latch on to that hope. So, yeah.
You're a beauty, Scotty.
Beers on us next time we can get together. Hopefully it'll be this summer. We'll
Fireball. Scotty wants Fireball.
Scotty wants Fireball. We can do Fireball as well.
I'm a bit of a tequila guy, so yeah, but it gets bad then.
So. We'll make sure
we'll keep the Don Julio on ice, Scotty. We'll get you the most expensive bottle of what's the cheap stuff? What's the cheap tequila, Drew?
Mezcal?
No, it's I can't even think of it right now.
I haven't drank tequila since some bad nights at the Tijuana Yacht Club back in the day, and we don't need to revisit those. You could tell how this is a hockey show, and I think there's photos probably somewhere about that, and absolutely nobody wants to see those photos. Let me tell you.
All right, let's move it along, boys.
Scotty,
Jose Cuervo, Scotty. I'll keep the Jose Cuervo on ice.
You got the Patron out. That's what you want. I want Patron. Anyways, all right. Have a good one, guys. I appreciate it.
There you go. Scotty Billeck, our good buddy. Still to come on the show, we're going to be joined by Chris Johnston of Sportsnet. Mark Dumont from Montreal is going to give him the Montreal perspective. Lots of stuff yet to come. Stay with us. We're going to take another commercial break. Much more to come. We'll talk about the Scheifele suspension as well. You're listening, you're watching, you're chatting with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Oh yeah, man, I love Scott.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go,
"We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?"
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
While you can't always count on your team winning, nor your favorite player scoring, one thing you can always count on is Bernstein's Deli. They've expanded their services because the team at Bernstein's Deli wants to accommodate your needs and keep you safe. Open Tuesday to Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. to serve you. Head to your phone, in-store or online to shop for groceries or order meals from the restaurant, like the legendary Illegal Curve Sandwich. Just go to bernsteinsdeli.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Saturday morning, welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Drew Ginsburg with you. Dave Manouk sliding into the chair late as always, but we'll forgive him this time yet again for doing so. This segment of the program brought to you by Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, officially declared the funniest place in Winnipeg by Illegal Curve Hockey. Bringing you North America's top-rated comedians for the past 35 years. Celebrate your upcoming birthday with great deals for you and all your friends. For more information, go to rumorscomedyclub.com and be sure to try the nachos. You won't be disappointed. Mr. Ginsburg seems to be eating something already. A bagel. You're eating a bagel that's been sitting there for at least the last hour plus. Is that correct? It's got to be a pretty cold bagel at this point in time.
What I have in my hand is a Bagel Smith bagel, a Montreal-style bagel. I toasted it before I came over to Dave M's house. It's got peanut butter on it. If you haven't had a Bagel Smith bagel, check them out. 185 Carlton, bagelsmith.ca. It's the best bagel in the city, and it's appropriate because the Jets are playing the Habs.
But what's not appropriate is toasting a bagel an hour and a half ago and then eating it.
More importantly, what's even less appropriate is Ezzy masticating the food and having everyone subjected to listening to him
Yeah, maybe
Chew
we muted his mic, so thankfully nobody will have to hear him chewing. But Dave, you know you're gonna have peanut butter all over your walls, all over your furniture.
Trust me, as he showed me the bagel, I thought, oh great, it's sesame. It's gonna be all over the place.
Yeah, and he's definitely not cleaning up after himself. There's no chance of that.
I couldn't toast it here. I don't have time to toast it at Dave M's house, so I did the smart thing. I toasted it at home, wrapped it up in a little aluminum foil, and brought it over. Now I'm having a little nosh.
Ronnie's bringing up an old radio memory. Remember that one time Ezzy found a pizza under his pillow?
Yeah,
and ate it.
Like 3 days later. It wasn't like the night.
I think it was actually the next morning. No, I think it was the next morning. I think he found it at like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning the next day.
We passed out with the pizza.
I was heavily liquid that night.
Oh, this is great, Ezzy.
That's it. I'm really glad you're doing it.
I know we have the power to put people in timeouts. I think Ezzy could be put in a timeout right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Drew, I know you like a Bagel Smith bagel as well, so I think you're just jealous that you don't have one right now in your mouth.
No, I would have the sense to not eat it on air. Let's just remove him from the picture. There you go. He's gone for a little while. I think that's an appropriate reaction until he's done eating his bagel. He can come back in a couple minutes. Yeah, Dave, obviously, let's talk about the Scheifele suspension. We're going to get to more of that throughout the course of the broadcast. 4 games for Mark Scheifele. To me, it's more than I thought it would be. Yeah. To me, it's excessive. And here's my thinking around it.
Okay.
1, there's not a great precedent for the NHL to point to when coming up with the answer. 2, the hockey world outside of Winnipeg thought that it was a bad play that deserved a serious suspension. I think from the NHL's perspective, it's easy for them to suspend a player from Winnipeg, from the city of Winnipeg, that plays for a team in Winnipeg without there being much blowback. If they suspend a guy on a questionable play, for an excessive amount of time, from Vegas, there's an outcry. There's a hue and a cry. If they do it from a guy from Toronto, there's an outcry. If you do it from a guy in Montreal or New York or wherever it might be, there's an outcry. 4 games for somebody from Winnipeg, there's not going to be an outcry. The NHL is not going to be worried about there being a blowback to the suspension. Was the Scheifele hit a bad hit? Yes, it was in my mind. He deserved to be suspended. I don't have a problem with that. But 4 games is not
too much.
Is not equitable to anything else we've seen from the NHL Department of Player Safety. And I do believe, and I know people are going to say, Drew, you're a conspiracy theorist. Drew, you're a whole.
I was going to suggest you take the tinfoil that Ezzy wrapped his bagel in and put it
for
on
a second, I thought Jesse Ventura popped on the show.
Totally legitimate. Those are fair comments you guys are making. I do believe. And this isn't the first time I've thought that. We talked about it last night after the show ended. Back in 2015, Dustin Byfuglien received a 4-game suspension for cross-checking JT Miller. It was late in the year. The Jets were right in the heart of that heart of the playoff battle that year. And Byfuglien got 4 games for the suspension for his cross-check on JT Miller in front of the net. I firmly believe in my heart of hearts, and I'm not an unreasonable, irrational person, as most people know that are watching this show, that Byfuglien got 4 games back in 2015 because it happened against the New York Rangers, and Larry Brooks, was writing about it, and Larry Brooks was making a big deal about how horrible of a play it was. And the NHL head offices are in New York. So who's the one hockey columnist that they read night in and night out, or day in and day out? It's Larry Brooks. His words have influence. So Byfuglien, again, it's easy to suspend somebody from Winnipeg for a longer time than they will suspend somebody from a lot of other markets in the NHL. And I think that is partially what partially got Mark Scheifele his 4-game suspension.
Yeah, and you're right. We will never know that, but it makes sense. And I think, I see a lot of people in the comment section agreeing with you, which makes me a little bit nervous, Dave. But, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it was, the last minute of the game and, Jake Evans leaving it on a stretcher. And I think, when you talk about a player's previous history, Scheifele's never been suspended in the NHL. I believe he's never been suspended in the OHL as well. But I think that, 4 games is too much. And I think if Scheifele was suspended for 2 games, then that would have made a lot of sense. But now he's going to miss essentially the whole series. And the precedent just isn't there for that type of suspension.
And we'll talk more about the Scheifele suspension throughout the program. We'll talk about a little bit with our good buddy, Chris Johnston from Sportsnet. CJ, good morning. Nice to see you. How are you, Marathon Man?
I'm doing well. Haven't got my run in yet. It's hot here today, so it's going to be a sweaty one once I'm done with you guys.
We certainly appreciate you giving us your time to talk a little bit about some puck, and not really the game that you necessarily think about when it's hot and sweltering outside. But it was here in Winnipeg as well last night, almost close to 40-degree temperatures for your typical June playoff game, but maybe not typical Winnipeg weather. CJ, we were talking about the Scheifele suspension, and obviously that has been a huge storyline for the past 48 hours, and the Jets are down 2-0, and you can't necessarily directly point to Scheifele's absence as the reason, but it certainly didn't help the Jets last night. Why, from your perspective, is 4 games the right number? Because from our perspective, and admittedly we're in Winnipeg and maybe we're wearing a little bit of rose-colored glasses, but I don't think so. It just seems like it's not. It's a suspension that's based more on the terrible visual of Jake Evans leaving the ice than necessarily the illegality of the hit. A suspendable hit from my perspective, no question, but I don't know that it was a 4-game suspendable hit.
Well, I think the fundamental issue with this, guys, is do we ever know what any suspension length is going to be? I mean, with any play involving any 2 players from any 2 teams, it's really hard for those of us on the outside of the process to get a clear understanding. I give the Department of Player Safety this credit. For the last number of years, they put out these videos. I think they're trying to, normalize the process. They're trying to give us a window into why they arrive at the decisions. But even as someone who, talks to those people that make those calls, I don't always understand. And so it's hard for me to give you a good answer there on why 4 games. I mean, it clearly was a devastating hit. And, the fact he is stretchered off is a factor there. I know he didn't end up going to hospital, Jake Evans, but, obviously didn't play game 2. I'm not sure if and when we'll see him back in the series himself for Montreal. And it's probably an unnecessary hit ultimately in that position, but at the same time, I understand Mark Scheifele's a competitor, and, it's tough for me to give you a stern or a clear thought on why it should be that long, other than there was definitely ample opportunity for him not to throw the check. And I think that's probably where they came down on that. Sometimes, say like the Kadri hit, which, ended up getting an 8-game suspension in the middle of the ice. That's a really split-second decision. Mark Scheifele, in relative terms, had time not to throw the hit. I think it was clear, when he was easing up kind of in the middle of the Jets' defensive zone coming back there, that Evans was going to be able to score. And he made a bad decision, and they wanted to punish him. But, it's a tough one, and I think it'll be a tough one if the Jets don't come back and get in this series, because we're going to view it as a play that had a real serious impact on the outcome.
To your point there, Chris, about how, it's basically you're spinning the roulette wheel when it comes to the NHL Department of Player Safety, oftentimes with how they come to their conclusions. Is that ever going to change? I mean, is there anything that fundamentally the general managers, in the NHL, can say to the head office of the NHL that is going to result in inconsistency occurring? I mean, and maybe it's a function of this. The game is too fast to really come to any sort of standards when it comes to suspendable plays. But if you're a general manager, you have to sometimes just be sort of throwing your hands up in the air, whether you're on the side of your player was injured by an illegal hit or your player delivered an illegal hit. You never have any real clue as to what ruling is going to be handed down.
Yeah, I'm an optimist by nature, but I really don't think we're going to get the consensus on this. I just think the plays themselves are too random. I mean, they're trying to apply a consistent standard, but I've watched a lot of hockey games. I don't know that I've ever seen a play exactly like that Mark Scheifele hit, right? I mean, a factor here is that he comes 180 feet down the ice. Now, for the first 160 or maybe even more, he's literally trying to break up the goal. You can see him back checking because his net's empty and there's a rush going the other way. It's not as though he came 180 feet just to throw the hit by any stretch. But, it's such an unusual play. I don't recall anything like it. I just think that we're going to be forever in circles on this. I really do. I think that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be increased, I guess, focus from the Department of Player Safety's end to try to get more consistency, maybe even to explain things a little deeper than they do, open the curtain even more. Because I think the more we all understand, maybe it's easier to process these decisions. But ultimately, you watch 1,000 hockey games and you still see something every once in a while you have no sort of track record of seeing. And that's where I think some of the confusion comes in.
Chris, what has been your assessment of the first couple of games? They obviously haven't gone the Jets' way, and last night's game, in terms of excitement, was not a very exciting game, especially when you flip over and you watch the Golden Knights Avalanche series, and that third period was about as good as it gets in terms of playoff hockey. But what are you seeing? Like, we've obviously talked about the series a lot, the first hour and 20 minutes of the show here, but is it just a Jets team that's just not generating enough offense? Like, is it a team that really misses Mark Scheifele and Paul Stastny? Like, what are you kind of seeing through the first couple?
Well, that's definitely a factor, but I covered the Canadiens in the first round, went to the games they played against Toronto here in Toronto, and then I also went to Game 6 in Montreal. To me, I'm seeing a Montreal team that's what they're getting good at. They found something here. To me, it's almost beyond explanation that a team doesn't have a 5-game win streak for 4 years and delivers it with 3 games to stave off elimination and then the first 2 to open the next round. I guess this lends some credence to that idea. If you get in the playoffs, anything can happen if the right things break your way. But, to me, what Montreal does so well is they really make it difficult in the neutral zone and at their blue line in terms of entering with speed. I haven't watched the Jets nearly as closely as you guys this year, but I've seen them play a fair bit. It seems to me when they're at their best, they're attacking in transition. You're seeing Ehlers and Connor, come up the ice and make dangerous rushes. That's sort of, from a Jets end where I see the chess match being played when you're down some of your top offensive weapons and players that maybe can help you do that. That's going to hurt, but I don't think they're out of the series by any stretch. Montreal's a team. You got to get a lead on them. They've played all these last games that they've won ahead in the game. Mm-hmm. It's a totally different ball game if Winnipeg scores first in Game 3, because Montreal, does struggle to score at times. I know their power plays come on here of late the last few games, but it's really been not a positive for them for most of this season. And so, I think the focus has to be finding ways to generate a little better offense. I heard Paul Maurice say, get to the net. It's going to take some ugly goals, I think. What stood out to me too is Carey Price. He's been really good, like really, really good. But I haven't seen him like stealing games here, even in the end of the Leafs series. It wasn't like he's making 45 saves a night and they're barely hanging on. I think the team game in front of him has been a factor. And, if you go to Montreal, there's 2 things on your mind. It's breaking through that defensive sort of zone trap, whatever we want to call that, and getting ahead in the game, because I do think that can shift the dynamic in the series.
Chris Johnston is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show Saturday morning. We're live on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms. Chris from his great work with our friends at Sportsnet.
Chris, as he touched on it a little bit in his opening to his question to you about that Vegas and Colorado series, and to me, when I flipped on that game, it was like a complete opposite. How much of a difference is that going to have, though, for whatever team emerges out of the North to have to go into that environment? Those teams are unbelievable anyways, but to have to go into that type of environment and play in front of 17,000 fans when you haven't done it, the most you've done is 2,500 in Montreal, 500 here in Winnipeg. What kind of difference, what kind of advantage do you see that being for those teams like either Colorado or Vegas?
I think for at least one game, it's huge, Dave. Like, I was at the game last Saturday night at the Bell Center. It was the first game back in Canada with fans. It was 2,500 people, and I think that arena holds almost 22,000. It's the largest rink in the league. You would think that wouldn't make a difference. I was literally shaking the whole game, like just sort of unable to get my heart rate under control because, much like I assume you guys are the same, I just haven't been around people in 18 months almost. And 2,500 people in an arena when you haven't done it, even as much as I've been around big games, and it made a difference in the atmosphere. And I think it was an advantage for the Canadiens in that particular night. Might be something even to consider with what the Jets are going to face, playing Game 3 on Sunday. But, for whatever team emerges here and then goes and plays in a truly full rink with full blast, I mean, Vegas is one of my favorite places to go to a game at the best of times. I just think it's an awesome, it's like being in a nightclub. It's unreal. Just the feel around a game. And that includes when you're there on a Tuesday night in February, but then also, now when you're talking about a team that's marching towards the possibility of a Stanley Cup. So I think for sure, at least the first time back in that, even though all these players have obviously played in front of fans a lot over the years, when you haven't been around it for a long time, you almost forget what it's like, and it'll be nuts. I think it'll be a real. Did you lose me?
No, we can still hear you.
We can hear you. We can't see you though.
You turned into an icon, Chris.
Well, I look better that way anyway, but I do think it's going to be a factor. I think it's difficult. I mean, what can the league do? It's all because of local health restrictions and all these things. I just have to hope too that, as time goes on here, I don't know what the exact plans are, but the Canadian teams can get more fans too and sort of even that up. But it's going to be huge. Someone has to go on the road for game one. Like it could be 10-1 for the other team just with the sort of scare factor there.
Well, in addition to the scare factor that you mentioned, Chris, have you seen anything from, either Winnipeg or Montreal that would lead you to believe that competitively they can match up against either Vegas or Colorado in the next round? Because we know that's going to be the matchup. But to me, and I think to a lot of other people who've been watching both series, it's as one-sided as one-sided gets, and not like we've seen sometimes Columbus upsetting Tampa Bay. I don't see any realm, all things being equal, that the North Division champion is going to have a hope or a prayer against who comes out of Vegas or Colorado.
Well, I haven't seen anything to prove it, but hockey's a crazy game, right? Like every once in a while, Latvia beats Canada or whatever. Like there's, there are ways that I think that these teams can do it. I mean, the fact that both of them have such tremendous goaltenders is one place to start. Obviously, we've seen it with Montreal that they can really lock things down.
Looks like we may have lost Chris altogether there. So hopefully we'll get him back on and
back.
There you go. You're there.
I don't know why my camera doesn't want to work, but anyways, I do think we've seen enough from Montreal defensively that maybe they got a shot, but no, I mean, gun to my head, if I have to bet my house on it, I'm not betting on one of the Canadian teams in that series, but it doesn't mean there's not reason to watch and reason to try if you're those teams. I do think crazy things happen, injuries, suspensions, all this stuff goes on in the playoffs. Hockey's a crazy game with rubber on ice. Like the best team doesn't always win, frankly. And so, it's a long shot that either of these teams ends up playing for the cup, but I'm not going to say it can't happen.
Chris, what has stood out to you in the Eastern Conference? Because I guess if we're calling it there we go. We see you again there, Chris. The Boston Islanders series, and then obviously, Carolina, the big, goal from Jordan Stahl, which we originally thought was Sebastian Aho's goal. But what are you seeing from those two series? Because it looks like, those series are wide open, and in terms of the Tampa Bay Lightning, I mean, the way Victor Hedman's playing, it looks like he hasn't skipped a beat. But what are you seeing, I guess, in those two series, and who do you think, who do you like to eventually come out of there? Because it doesn't look like it's as clear cut necessarily as the West, as we were talking about. With it looks like whoever wins the Vegas Colorado series is kind of destined to be in the Cup final.
Yeah, I see it as almost a coin flip in both cases, quite honestly. I picked Carolina. My predictions are terrible. Like anyone listening to this, you should just fade my predictions. Do the opposite of whatever you see me do. I had
you took the Jets in 4, right, Chris?
What's that?
You took the Jets in 4, though, right? Over
I think
the Oilers?
I might have taken Edmonton in 4. It might have been 5. Anyway, it couldn't. Either way, I couldn't have been more wrong there. I picked Toronto to beat Montreal. I mean, it's just all year long. I can't get out of my own way. I just hope they eventually allow me not to make predictions. But I did predict Carolina to go to the Cup final. So, that being said, if I was picking today, because the wind's blowing in a different direction from what I've seen, I think Tampa's going to come out of that round with the Hurricanes. Yeah, I think people are sleeping on Tampa a little bit. They're still a pretty scary team and a pretty deep team. It's maybe not quite as sort of doesn't melt your eyes the way when you're watching Vegas, Colorado, just the speed that those teams play, and obviously some high-end players, particularly on the Colorado end of things with that speed. But I think the Lightning, having finally got over the hump last year and won a Stanley Cup, I would not rule them out winning a second one in a row. The Boston series is interesting. The Bruins weren't really the Bruins for maybe half this season. I wonder if some of the turnover on their blue line, losing Torrey Krug and Zdeno Chara, they had injuries back there too. But Charlie McAvoy is like growing up before our eyes. I mean, he's really settled into a nice position there. The Taylor Hall acquisition at the deadline is one of those ones. No matter how far they go, there's going to be no regret about that decision that they made. And so, I see kind of Boston and Tampa on this side of the ledger as the top two teams if I was doing power rankings. But look, the Islanders were in the Eastern Conference Final last year. They can grind out games with the best of them. I think this is going to actually be an entertaining Stanley Cup tournament. It's going to be hard to keep everyone's attention because it's summer and things are opening up, and hopefully we got patios back soon and all that stuff. But in terms of that teams left, I almost think everyone remaining not in Canada has a legitimate claim to try to win that cup.
Chris I just Johnston, heard the ice cream truck, Chris, outside.
Chris Johnston, our guest here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Chris is, of course, with Sportsnet. You're watching the show live on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms.
Chris, if I asked you about Toronto, folks in our chat would murder me. So I'm not going to ask you about the Leafs specifically, but I am going to ask you about Zach Hyman because his is a very curious situation. So how do you see that one playing out?
Well, my gut tells me he's not going to be back with the Leafs, and it's not because there's any ill will or any disrespect or anything like that. It's just a team that doesn't have a lot of cap space to devote to sort of the middle class, or even I think Zach Hyman might find himself in the sort of what I might call the upper middle class, north of $5 million on his next contract. And it's a player, look, it's, Zach Hyman, I don't know, especially in Winnipeg, people might not be familiar with the story, but he played a couple years at the University of Michigan where he barely played. He was a long shot to make the NHL in a lot of ways. And his story is one of really beating the odds through work, I believe, and effort and sticking with it. And even his first NHL season, he had something like 28 points despite playing with Austin Matthews. And he's now become a guy who scores at about a 60-point pace. And he hasn't had a full season these last 2 years, but he's been very, very productive. So, this is his chance to cash in. Let's call it as it is. He's entering his age 29 season. He's got great results, great teammate, penalty kill, power play. I mean, he's everything I think contending teams would want, including the Maple Leafs. But they, as far as I can see it, are going to have trouble, making that work in a cap way. And so, I think that this is headed for a little bit of a painful breakup, maybe more on the Leafs side than Hyman's side. I mean, if you're Zach Hyman, this is going to be the payday of your life, and this is going to be a chance to maybe get a little bit more respect. Coming up at the same time as a team as William Nylander, Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, it's been easy to have him sort of be not a focal point for the Leafs organization. I think they've always given him a certain amount of love, but, he had to play. He was the one guy who didn't get paid on his second contract here, and now he's going to get paid on his third contract. And I suspect he's just going to be priced out of the market to be back in Toronto. But stranger things have happened. Maybe the Leafs end up making a bit of a surprise move, trade out one of those players, and that allows them to maybe balance how they pay guys on their lineup. But if not, I mean, it's just another middle class player that's gone. The last 3 years, the Leafs have lost, off the top of my head, James Van Riemsdyk, Tyler Bozak, Nazem Kadri, Andreas Johnston, Kasperi Kapanen. If you add Zach Hyman to that list, really the common denominator there is they just can't pay the middle class of forwards. They have their top end, and they got to keep finding cheaper guys to make it all work.
Dave might be afraid of the people in the chat hating him, but that's not a fear I have. They've hated me for a long time, I think, already. So I'm going to ask you about the Leafs. It seems to me that their first round debacle this year, it was their best chance to that this seems to be the peak of where they were in terms of roster building, in terms of assembling talent, in terms of really getting a chance and getting an opportunity to go far. Why would next year's Leafs team, given the salary cap, given the salary structure they have on their roster, why would next year's Leafs team, and I know you don't have a crystal ball to know exactly what it would look like, but why would next year's Leafs team have a better chance than this year's Leafs team?
It probably won't ever have a better chance on paper or in the models that the smart people are building on, percentage chance to win the cup. But I think the bet from management is that Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, John Tavares, that you're going to have one season where all those players show up in the playoffs. In this year's case, Matthews and Marner weren't as productive as you'd like in round one, and Tavares got injured in a freak accident in game one of the playoffs. I think really the bet is that they've assembled more high-level offensive talent that most teams can do in a cap world, and that if you just keep running it back, that one year you're going to hit all those numbers. And, look, we can have a debate whether that will happen, but I think that is, in essence, why management is resistant on, overreacting to what happened over 12 days against the Montreal Canadiens, is that, yeah, they could go trade Mitch Marner or William Nylander, but they're not going to be able to replace them with commensurate players in those deals. Yes, you can restore some balance to your lineup maybe by doing that. You might get two good players for one excellent player going out, but, that their difference maker is that they have those four guys. And so, it's going to be tougher. I think going back to the old Atlantic division for the Leafs is going to be a monumental challenge. Look, you got to go through Tampa, Boston at minimum. We saw Florida finish top 5 in points this year. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this Montreal thing is a mirage or if it's real, but they're in that division too. Even Ottawa is at least a tough opponent. Maybe not one that scares you in the playoffs yet, but you don't have easy games against them during the season, and so. It's going to be a huge challenge, but I think you bet on talent. And Austin Matthews just won the Rocket Richard Trophy. He's a finalist for the Ted Lindsay. He's going to be a finalist for the Hart. They didn't have a great series. Some of it's luck. Matthews hit 2 posts in that series. He had 35 shots in 7 games. He's got the best shot on earth right now, in my opinion, or at least the most deceptive. And so you just run it back and hope for better results next time.
Speaking of running it back, we'll let you get on with your morning run. Chris Johnston from Sportsnet, good friend of ours. CJ, always appreciate your time. Always appreciate your insight. We'll watch you on TV later tonight. Thanks so much for joining us.
Looking forward to headlines.
Keep kicking ass, boys, and enjoy those games. Maybe a little better result for the Jets coming.
Well, they've been a better road team than a home
so much,
team.
Chris.
So Jets fans here in Winnipeg are hoping for that. Thanks so much, CJ. Take care.
See you guys.
There he goes. Chris Johnston from Sportsnet, our guest here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on YouTube. We're live on all of our social media channels. CJ's appearance on the show was brought to you by Boston Pizza. Boston Pizza is the perfect starting lineup tonight with the BP Game Day Meal Deal. Choose 2 of your favorite medium gourmet pizzas, a triple order of Boston's famous wings, 2 dipping sauces, all for $54.99. It serves 5 to 6 people. Available for takeout and delivery only at bostonpizza.com or download the My BP app. We're going to take our final commercial break of the morning. When we come back, Dave and Ezzy will give their insights on the Scheifele suspension. Much more Jets and Habs talk to come. Mark Dumont going to join us at the top of the hour for the perspective from Montreal. You're listening, you're chatting, you're watching Ezzy eat a bagel. We're live with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show on YouTube and all of our social media platforms.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go,
"We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?"
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
While you can't always count on your team winning, nor your favorite player scoring, one thing you can always count on is Bernstein's Deli. They've expanded their services because the team at Bernstein's Deli wants to accommodate your needs and keep you safe. Open Tuesday to Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. to serve you. Head to your phone, in-store or online to shop for groceries or order meals from the restaurant, like the legendary Illegal Curve sandwich. Just go to bernsteinsdeli.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal. Starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
20 minutes before the top of the hour. Nice job, Dave. Way to slide in there in time. 1 for 3 today. It's very similar to your batting average in the Jewish Men's Softball League, but we appreciate it nonetheless that you were
able to execute. Too, Drew, so you don't have to mute me.
I still might mute you just for the hell of it. I mean, I enjoy the power of being able to remove you from the studio on my every whim. But I suppose
I'm just worried about Chris Johnston turning into an icon and then magically reappearing again. I will
say that was actually rather entertaining. Just seeing this pulsating ring talking with Chris's voice.
We always appreciate CJ joining us here on the program. Before we get back to the Scheifele suspension, got to give a shout out, Team Canada. How about that? From being basically on death's door when it came to their chances at the World Hockey Championships this morning, bright and early this morning, as he was awake, Team Canada defeating the United States 4-2 in the semifinals. They're going to move into the finals, the championship game tomorrow morning of the World Hockey Championships in Riga, Latvia. They're going to play the winner of Germany and Finland, a game that I believe is tied up at 1 goal apiece. So big shout out to all the representatives.
Someone just said it was 2-0 Finland.
Oh, okay. I could be wrong entirely then. 2-0 Finland, says Matthew Thompson. So I apologize. 2-0 Finland. So if that continues, it'll be Canada and Finland in tomorrow morning's World Hockey Championship gold medal game. Yeah. People asking about Cole Perfetti. He was the 13th forward for Team Canada in today's game, which means he didn't really play. He sat on the bench, he got dressed, but he didn't really play in one of those unique rules that are exclusive to the IIHF. So wouldn't expect to see much about him.
Don't forget Leon Gavanke, the 2018 fifth rounder. He's or 17 fifth rounder, 2018 fifth rounder.
Playing for Team Germany.
He's playing for Team Germany. Had a critical goal. He scored the game tying goal the other night, and then they ended up winning that game, I think, in overtime. So good experience for a couple of Jets prospects.
Yeah, and I
have to apologize to Tikona Pauly. It did not even occur to me for a second that there was going to be somebody PVRing that game that was unaware of the score. So my apologies, Tikona Pauly. Maybe I freed up the rest of your day. I gave you a little bit more time to go spend it outside and enjoy the beautiful unseasonable.
Put sunscreen on, Tikona.
Yeah,
I want Tikona Pauly to explain to me the fascination with flamingos, because I know some people in Transcona, and apparently everybody's got a flamingo on their grass in Transcona. It's a huge thing there. I know, Drew, you don't leave the south end of the city. You're not like me. I go east, I go north, I go to Garden City, I go to the west end. You're in your little bubble in the south end, but apparently flamingos are a big thing there. So maybe Tikona Pauly can let us know there what's going on.
I would argue from your perspective, Ezzy, that being chased out of every different community in Winnipeg isn't necessarily something you should be bragging about. But that's something you'll have to deal with on your own time later on.
Can I mention one thing though about the World Championship? First off, if for those who haven't been watching, Perfetti did score the game-winning goal against Kazakhstan, so he has been playing. I'm not sure if he has another goal, Dave. You might know.
I believe he scored against Italy.
So he's got a couple goals. So even though, as Drew mentioned, he's not playing much, in the later rounds, he has been playing. And this is just a great experience, right, guys? 100%. We're not going to get too much into it now because I know we want to get back to it. But he is having a great time over there in Latvia. We should also give a shout out to our good buddy, Dennis Bayak, who's doing an awesome job calling some games play-by-play. I don't know if he considers me a good buddy, but the other thing, too, Andrew Mangiapane, we got to give him a lot of credit. Dave and I were at that draft in 2015 in Florida. Mangiapane was taken in the 6th round, 2 spots before Mason Appleton. And I remember thinking the Jets might be able to get Mangiapane. And it turns out Mangiapane was coached by Dale Hawerchuk in Barrie. And I was thinking the Jets might get Mangiapane because of the connection with Hawerchuk. obviously, Mason Appleton's worked out pretty well, but pretty awesome that Mangiapane was a 6th round pick. He's turned into a really good NHL player, and he's been Canada's best player, arguably.
How about the fact that the 2 6th-round picks are both having an impact for their respective teams? How they were picked very close to each other in that draft. That doesn't happen every year because usually a 6th-round pick is very much a shot in the dark. Speaking of shots in the dark, the NHL Department of Player Safety Adjudication Committee decided that Mark Scheifele gets 4 games for his hit on Jake Evans, and obviously the health and safety and the health and well-being of Jake Evans is of paramount concern to everybody. But people here in Winnipeg are upset, and I think people around the NHL maybe aren't upset about the Scheifele suspension, but they're curious as to the rationale and the reasoning that you come up for 4 games being the length of time. And I addressed that before we brought CJ in, saying that I think it's a factor of the Winnipeg market, and you can suspend a guy from Winnipeg for longer than you can necessarily suspend a guy from another market without there being any blowback. And I believe that, but I want to hear what you guys have to think about the suspension of 4 games for Mark Scheifele.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit before CJ came on, right? Like, I was surprised that it was 4 games. After game 1, when we did the post-game show, all of us agreed it was a dirty hit, and we thought there was a good chance the NHL Department of Player Safety was going to look at it, and it might result in a suspension. None of us were saying, 4 games, 5 games, anything like that. And I think, it goes back to what Chris Johnston was saying, that it was such a unique hit, right? Like, you don't see guys get nailed after scoring an empty net goal on a wraparound. First off, you don't see a lot of wraparound empty net goals. Usually, it's a shot from center or the blue line, right, into the empty cage. But so it's just a unique situation. But to me, it has nothing, guys, to do about charging or, him getting the shoulder before the head. It's that it was on an unsuspecting player and it was unnecessary. That's for me, like, you can't tell me. And I realize Mark Scheifele said yesterday that he was just trying to, disrupt the play and he was trying to prevent Jake Evans from scoring a goal. But I just don't buy that. Scheifele is, don't get me wrong, Scheifele is a good guy. He's the Jets' best offensive player. But you got to be in control of your body and you got to know what you're doing. So I don't think it's a debate in terms of, I know there's some people that think it shouldn't have been a suspension, and those people, I don't think you're going to convert them. But I just think, 1 game or 2 games would have made a lot more sense. And I think you have to factor in too, he did get a major penalty. So, it did hurt the Jets big time in that game. The game was obviously already over.
The major penalty doesn't mean anything. The game was over. It was 5-3 with no time left on the clock.
But I'm just saying, the point is that, the referees did get it right. It should have been a major. But I think just 4 games is too much. I think it should have been 2 max. That's just me.
It's hard to. There was so much. It was, like I said, it's interesting, and you reach out to players, whether they're former NHLers, and some would say privately that it was an amazing hit, and they don't have a problem with it. And then there's others. And others said that publicly, right? You had guys who played in the NHL who said they had no problem with the hit. And if if you're going to make that play, Jake Evans, you have to have your head up. You have to be aware. You can't have your head down and not be aware that Scheifele's coming. I'm just telling you it's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that's what we're hearing.
Commodore said that. Jeremy Roenick said that. I think I didn't watch it, but it sounds like Sean Avery said something.
Sure. The point is that people who have played the game have said that. Now, again,
Sean Avery, Drew, come on.
Well, I'm
just saying he was out there.
If we're talking about high fashion in New York, maybe you can reference Avery, or if it's smoking cigarettes on the sidewalk in New York and shooting crappy Instagram videos. I'm a Devils fan, so I'm never going to forget Avery for that. But
anyways,
I think carry on, Dave.
I think what it comes down to, though, is that there's just going to be a lot of opinion. Now, some people felt that Mark Scheifele needed the book thrown at him and he needed to be made an example of. Paul Maurice in his media availability yesterday talked about this idea of, well, I think he was trying to say, well, now you've created a precedent, so this better be what you follow and be consistent. And I wrote, that was I want to say it was a Free Press article, and I wrote in the afternoon links, and I referenced it again in the morning papers. I said Paul Maurice is dreaming if he thinks he's ever going to get consistency from the Department of Player Safety, and I think that's all anybody wants. Look, do I think it was a suspendable hit? I thought so. I thought it was a 1 or a 2 gamer based on what we've seen from the NHL so far. I was surprised by 4 games, no question about it. Mark Scheifele said yesterday he's not appealing it. He's gonna He's just not going to be a distraction to the team. So listen, I'm not an apologist. I did when I watched that play initially, no ability for replay. Just I was in the building. I watched the play live. My first blush was, it looked like a dirty hit. Then I watched it again on replay, and I thought, well, was it as bad as it looked live? Then I watched it again. I saw a different angle. I thought, okay, well, it doesn't look great for Mark Scheifele. So my point is, hockey guys, and everybody knows this, and this isn't something that's like super insightful, but hockey is such a fast game. So, you're asking guys, and that's why I said refs get credit people, want to dump on refs all the time. And look, with 4 officials, 2 refs and 2 linesmen, they should get calls more often than not.
But and they do. More often than not, they do get calls right.
Right. But I'm just, what I'm getting at is it's a fast game. Things happen quickly. And so, like I said, the same person can see it 6 different times and come to 6 different conclusions sometimes because you saw it one way, you saw it at a different angle. And I'm saying we're in the luxury of a replay, slow motion, all of this stuff. I would, like I said, I go back and I think to myself, it definitely merited a suspension based on everything that occurred, based on the way the video looked. I just think 4 was a little too tough. I thought I would have been satisfied with a 2-game suspension of Mark.
Yeah, can I throw in one thing? Can I throw in a couple things, Drew? Why I also think 4 games was too much. First off, I really believe and this is my own opinion. I don't Scheifele have any chance of preventing that goal. Like if you remember, we talked about this after Game 1 on the post-game show. Like Jake Evans is a fast guy. He beat out the icing, if you remember, and it was a wrap. Like he was going to try to wrap that puck around and most likely score. So I don't think Scheifele really had any shot whatsoever. He was too far away. If you look at the replay, like Scheifele is not even in the picture when Evans is behind the net. So I really don't think Scheifele had any chance. All Scheifele had to do was ease up Dave. You know what I mean? Like he just didn't. That's to me what was so egregious about it. I know Drew likes that big word that I use, the big Creecom word that I use. But that's
correctly at that.
Exactly. I don't know how to spell it, but that's another story. But all Scheifele had to do was stop up. Like he followed through and plowed Evans, an unsuspecting guy, because when you're wrapping the puck around into an empty net, you're just not expecting someone to come in on a charge, and it was charging. Forget this nonsense. People saying, "Oh, it's not really charging, and his feet were on the ice." You're missing the point here. The other thing is that I would say is that 4 games in the playoffs is the equivalent of 8 games during the regular season. A playoff suspension is not the same. I don't care what anybody says. Scheifele essentially misses the entire series, right? Like we'll see what happens here. If the Jets are able to push it to 6 games, obviously he's going to get in for Game 6 and possibly Game 7. But that's why, Dave, I thought 4 games was too much, especially when you consider what Nazem Kadri got. And I realize that people don't want to, factor in the record. But what was Mark Scheifele talking about yesterday in his press conference? He was talking about how, he only had 12 penalty minutes, whatever it was. He's had no history of suspensions. I think that does factor in. It factors into our, criminal justice system. Obviously I have no personal experience with it, but, it factors in when you're talking about sentencing, right? In terms of priors. So I think
this is the guy who wrote the LSAT
and got a 147, I might add. 35th percentile. Come on, Drew. Not bad.
Right.
I mean, I didn't get into law school, but
right in that juicy part of the curve is when George Costanza once said on Seinfeld, if I recall correctly. Look, it's the randomness of it, and so I'm not. It doesn't bother me. I mean, I don't necessarily know that it's justice, and that there's any logic or reason or fairness to the suspension. But I think Mark Scheifele has to realize he can't put himself in the position where his fate is in the hands of the roulette wheel of the Department of Player Safety. That's, I think, my biggest takeaway from it is that Scheifele in that instance, and I know it's a bang-bang play, and I know that there's a lot of energy and there's a lot of emotion going through him at that exact time. You cannot put your fate in someone else's hands. And I think that's the problem. That's a funny comment from Comet there. If Scheifele needs lessons on how to fly by, he can ask Kyle Connor. That's a very funny comment. Well done there, Comet. You might get the Illegal Curve comment of the day for Comet. That gets you nothing but our praise, so congratulations there. But, you just can't put yourself in that position where we talk about it all the time where a guy who turns into a hit, he can't put himself into a position where he's vulnerable. Scheifele can't put himself into a position where he's vulnerable to the whims of justice of the Department of Player Safety. That's where he particularly hurts the NHL. The longer it took on Thursday for the announcement to come out, the less severe I thought it would be. I thought we were going to hear on Wednesday night after game 1 that Scheifele was going to have his hearing. That didn't happen until Thursday morning. And then it took until late Thursday evening, like it was close to 6 o'clock Central Time, if not past 6 o'clock Central Time.
No, I think it was like 7 o'clock.
Well, okay. I mean, I know that, it was later in the evening for sure that they finally came out and gave the suspension. And I was very surprised. I thought that the longer it took, it was going to be one. Maybe even the thought crossed my mind that it might only be a fine or something.
Well, just to interject quickly, I agree with you because, I mean, obviously I had it ready to go on illegalcurve.com. But the funny part was, what I was thinking to myself was, you're only doing this if you kind of, like, if you release the news while you have a hockey game that's about to start, you're kind of taking the news cycle away from hockey, the games itself, to make this the story. And then either way, right? If you make it minimal, maybe you can distract people because you're watching hockey, which is why I agree with you. I thought that was leading into it was going to be more of a 1-game suspension, but it'll quash a lot of the outrage because people are watching hockey. But instead, you make it 4, which is like makes all of Canada. I mean, it was insane how the website blew up and everybody was talking about it. So it made it the whole story of the night. Everybody. I mean, I don't even know the scores from that night because that's all anybody was talking about was the Scheifele suspension.
No, he was talking about the game on Thursday, as in not the game on Wednesday. But you're right, Dave. It was a bizarre sort of sequence of events because you remember when Josh Archibald went after Logan Stanley, we found out that night, that during the post-game show when we were on with the Illegal Curve post-game show, we found out that Archibald was going to have a hearing. So, and I expected to see that similar tweet from the Department of Player Safety, on Wednesday night. And then it took until Thursday morning, and then it took late Thursday for the announcement to come out. I do think that the NHL Department of Player Safety struggled with this one. And when they struggle with it, you sort of think that that's going to lead to a lesser punishment than he received. Obviously, I was wrong in that instance. But 4 games, to your point, Ezzy, 4 games being the equivalent of 8 games come playoff time really makes it an eye-opening play. And I wonder how it's going to impact things going forward. And this isn't a bit of an aside, but I saw a comment from somebody yesterday, and it was a really reasonable comment saying, why is it always a former player who leads the Department of Player Safety? Shouldn't it be interesting? Wouldn't it be interesting to get a referee or a former official in that role? And I thought there was some wisdom to that tweet and a wisdom to that comment saying that instead of just having a random former NHL players serve 2 games at a time or 2 years at a time in that thankless role, maybe an official who's used to calling penalties might come with a different perspective, from a different perspective as it relates to the Department of Player Safety. And I sort of like that idea. On that note,
I was just
bring
going to
in our good friend from Montreal wearing a snazzy Montreal Expos hat. Our good buddy, Mark Dumont, joins us from Montreal. Mark, good morning. How are you, my friend?
Good morning. I imagine you came here, you asked me to come on to give my unbiased opinion about the hit, right?
Well, let's start with that because, I mean, Mark.
Actually, can we ask Newman, Mark? Can Newman let us know how many games Scheifele should have got?
Okay, before we get into this, the role reversal in my life right now, I'm one of the few people that's gotten a really good year. At one point, I was eating pizza, drinking beer with a puppy on me, watching a playoff game at the Bell Center, getting paid for it. I mean, guys, I don't want to brag here, but geez, man, sometimes life is good. Like, it kicks you in the nuts about 99 times in a row, but once in a while, it just, delivers that poutine on a silver platter. So I can't wait to work with Newman before. Best coworker I've ever had.
Okay, you have to
Mark,
tell
it'll be
the
even
audience.
better if the Expos come back to Montreal, right?
I was a Blue Jays fan, so I don't.
Oh,
okay. I know. Just like I love the Pirates logo, I really like the Expos logo. I actually think, I'm one of those that I big Blue Jays fan my entire life. When I came here, it was kind of because I'm from Ottawa. I wanted to just kind of, integrate. But then I have all these 60-year-old men stopping me on the street, no joke, and they're like, let's talk about the Expos in the 70s. I'm like, they played at Jerry Park, I think, So yeah, it's been
just ask them where they were for Blue Monday. That's all you have to ask them in return is where were they for Blue Monday?
Oh my God. And it's like you see the sadness in these men's eyes there, like no joke, I'm walking and there's people like doing this on the side. I'm like, what the hell is he? Like, what are you doing there? And then they want to have a full out conversation, so it's there's a lot of sadness there left for the Expos, but hopefully the Habs can erase those memories that are going forward.
This is a complete segue. We were in Dallas once for a buddy's bachelor party. Ezzy and I were there, and we went to the Red River Showdown between Texas Longhorns and the Oklahoma Sooners, and we were decked out in Texas gear because why the hell not? Not that we have any allegiance, but as we were leaving the stadium, we were walking around. We were actually going to a Jets Dallas Stars game that same night. The timing was quite fortuitous, and we were walking around downtown Dallas afterwards, decked out in our Texas Longhorns gear, and cars were just driving by and rolling down the windows and hollering, yeah, hook 'em horns, and we're all going with the hook 'em horns logo back at them. It's just like,
you're like, this is fun, but it's fun, but it feels dangerous too. Like, like the intensity is going up there. So
exactly, just glad we didn't come by any Sooners fans, or otherwise we might be in a heap of trouble there,
right?
In an open carry state like Texas.
No. Nobody ever takes sports too seriously, right? and speaking of segues there, I'd like to make a quick note here. I mean, I actually, after the hit, I got emotional. I'll admit, Jake is a friend of mine. I know his parents, Wayne and Marilyn, and I've seen him since, I was the first guy to interview him at the rookie tournament. Anyways, blah, blah, blah. And I got a little emotional. Like, I don't think Mark Scheifele is a dirty player whatsoever. I mean, you can't say he's a dirty player. You just can't. That play, obviously, when he changed his mind, here's the issue. People are arguing about back check and hit. It was clear he was back checking. Then he changed his mind, right? Like, that's what it was to me. That doesn't change the overall results. But one thing I will say, I got frustrated. I think I called him cowardly. I think the play was cowardly. He's not a cowardly person. But you never go after families. And like, I'm going to say this, all Habs fans. I don't know how many did it. You just don't, because that's more cowardly than any hit you can do in the NHL. So you never go after family. Never, never, never. Obviously, have a thought for Evan's family, but you just never go after family. So I'm really disappointed that happened. And, if anything, the fans should take the lead of the players, just follow their lead because they're moving on from this. And I think that's probably the best for everyone. And I mean, when it comes down to it, guys, let's be honest. That's the biggest hit here is that the Jets lost Scheifele. Like, that's like you're losing your best player for 4 games. Jeez, that's huge, So like in the long run, you can't feel anger. Well, yeah, you can feel anger at the play, but like the actual result, injury. Overall, I think it hurt the Jets a lot more than it hurt the Canadiens. Like, I mean, there's no way to argue that, right?
Right, absolutely right, and well said about your comments about people taking it beyond an appropriate level, and it was. I mean, we talked about it on the Wednesday post game show that we did, Mark, and it was about as bad of a 24 hours, I think, on social media between the hit on Wednesday and then maybe things started to calm down by maybe Friday morning. But
I don't think they have calmed down. I mean, just to quickly interject here, Mark, I'm looking at our social media posts, and it's amazing how many on YouTube people comment, and it's just like, I honestly, sometimes I think to myself, like, are you actually signing this with your real name? Are you saying these things with your actual name? You're attaching your name to what you're saying? Because if you read it back, and I wrote this on the morning papers. I said, it's one thing to do to hate a player, but when you've promoted that hatred from you hate a player to going after their family, you've gone from being a fan to a lunatic, and you actually need professional help at that point.
And we saw stuff about drug use. Like let's another thing I'd like to make clear to my colleagues in the media. Stigmatizing addiction it's not just stupid. It's actually really insulting to a lot of people around the world. So to me, it's clear here. When Scheifele saw it, and you could see in his eyes, like, people, he's on drugs. No, you effing idiot. Something just happened. His adrenaline was probably starting to come down a little bit, and then your brain starts to like process it, and you're like, holy crap, what did I just do? So I saw a player that was in shock because he's never done anything like this before. You know what I mean? Like, if it was Downey, okay, maybe, but Scheifele has a clean record. So I think actually, Dave, Habs fans have moved on, but because of the suspension and because of the win, right?
Right.
So, and I understand why people would be frustrated on the Winnipeg side here. And again, it was just like, it was such a unique play, right? Because I really think he was hustling to stop the goal, but then he was like, "Hey, no, I like, obviously I'm pissed here." So, yeah, all in all, unfortunate for Evans, but fans and media need to smarten up when these things happen. Let the emotions flow. Let them flow away from social media. You know, like go punch a wall.
Go for a run.
Mark, you know the scary part is I saw on social media in advance of the series beginning people saying it's going to be tough to hate the Jets. And and Jets fans saying the same to have. It's going to be hard to hate you because we.
I did the same thing.
No, it's true because like Jets fans hate the Oilers from the.
There's no animosity between. Yeah, like there's nothing, right?
And obviously Montreal, Toronto have that heated rivalry.
And so, Toronto, Vancouver, and Toronto, Calgary, and Toronto, and there must be some sort of common link there. I'm with you, Dave. I actually wrote, I'm like, yo, we got to build up the animosity here. You know, Manitobans don't recycle. They hate puppies. And then I'm like, yeah, there's not enough bad blood. Holy shit, Mark, shut up sometimes, you know, like. But
and then I saw Murat sent you a picture of his puppy, right?
Right, exactly. So, which, by the way, shout out to Murat, really, really good guy here. So, but I mean, all in all, I still don't feel like there's like yesterday was almost like an emotional letdown. I feel like both teams are just kind of like, I don't want to push it here. I don't want to push the play. And obviously, you know, here's the key here is that as good as Price has been, Hellebuck's, I mean, obviously, I think he's a superior goalie, and I think statistically we can say that. Yeah. This isn't over for the Habs. Like this idea that, you know, everyone's talking about the next round. Hellebuck will keep them in every single damn game. I mean, like, and obviously the Jets picked up their play there, but Connor Hellebuck, in my opinion, is probably the best goalie in the NHL right now. So this idea of underrating, and, you know, they got a couple weak ones by his standards. I don't think it'll keep like in game one, obviously. Connor Hellebuck scares me. Like, he's terrifying. He's a terrifying goalie. Everyone talks about Price being calm. Look at Connor Hellebuck. Like, that is the image of calm. So I have a feeling he hasn't said his last word in this series yet.
Saturday morning, you're listening to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms. Our guest is Mark Dumont, special contributor for the Montreal Canadiens. Mark's appearance on the show is brought to you by Bernstein's Deli, official deli of Illegal Curve Hockey, and home of the Illegal Curve Sandwich.
Which is delicious, if I remember correctly. Sorry, Kurt, keep going.
No, by all means, it is delicious, and we don't need to add more heat to this conversation about smoked meat versus the Illegal Curve Sandwich. We don't need to go into that. There's room in the world for everybody, especially sandwich-wise.
Exactly, and same thing with bagels. Every city's allowed to have them except for Toronto. Yeah, exactly. I agree. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And Mark, I don't know if you saw this. I tweeted it at you, but our friends at Bagelsmith Winnipeg here in downtown Winnipeg, they actually have a friendly bet going with St. Viator. So if the Habs win, then Bagelsmith is going to make a donation to Main Street Project. And if the Jets win, then St. Viator has agreed to make a donation to a Montreal charity. So, just absolutely awesome. Both
Food and charity, right?
Bagels. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like you can't go wrong. That's what life is all about, right?
I'll tell you guys a secret here. Montreal I don't know how I retweeted this to my followers. Montreal bagels are super overrated. I mean, like you can get them in Ottawa from Kettleman's. You can get them in Winnipeg. I mean, they're good. Mate, let's calm down here on the bread. Like people here, I swear to God, they're picking up pitchforks and like, oh, you like Fairmount? Like, well, I was gonna marry your daughter, but now I'm gonna burn your entire house to the ground because it's crazy. Now I do remember that, Ezra. I was actually eating a Saint Viator bagel at the time. Because they go bad in like 2 days, which is a great sign. I stopped buying store-bought bagels. Yeah, or freeze them, but I live right beside one, as you can see.
Right on.
And I stopped eating like store-bought bagels when I went on vacation for a month once, and I came back and they were perfect. And I was like, "Ooh, like what kind of science is at play here now?" So I'm definitely on board with the fresh bagels now. And I hear you guys have a booming bagel scene.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, let's get back to the hockey. We've covered.
No. Let's talk food. Let's talk more food here. Let's go. What's on that sandwich, Drew?
Okay, fine. You're gonna make me do this?
Yeah.
Thick cut city rye bread, honey mustard, chicken schnitzel, fried salami, cheddar cheese, and fried onions.
Okay, schnitzel is so underrated, eh? Like there's this little schnitzel restaurant that opened up near the farm where I'd usually go work in the summer. I know I sound like a 1930s hockey player, but like, and they have this schnitzel place, and holy shit, schnitzel, man! Like, where you been my whole life, Schnitzel? So, anyways, I recommend everyone to go get that sandwich. It sounds delicious.
There you go. And we need to put more breading around meat.
Let's send one to
really
Mark Express. Like, what are we doing? How have we not sent one to Mark already? To be honest with you, all the times he's been on the show.
Well,
I mean,
common courtesy,
listen,
Drew.
I don't eat very often. I'm not big into food. You know, I like to maintain my proper figure. Okay, I like my bikinis to fit nice in the summer, but I would probably try it. You know,
it's hot Mark summer. You've heard of hot girl summer? It's hot Mark summer.
Yeah, exactly. I'll try most things once, and everything once and most things twice. So yeah, absolutely. You can FedEx that to me, no problem. There's a whole like food delivery FedEx in Quebec. It's how we get poutines around. So it works out well.
Next time you come to Winnipeg, the sandwich will be on us, buddy.
Exactly. No, perfect. Yeah. And the other thing here, we have to stop with the whole like in Montreal, like, oh, Winterpeg. I'm like, guys, relax. Like it's not cold out. Like
we get like 1 month of summer, Mark. Like, come on.
Okay, Mark, it was plus 40 yesterday. I'm not sure right? how much warmer it could have been.
But it's also going to snow tomorrow, though, Dave.
Yes, okay, that's the other part. But like, does the Canadian media think that it's Hoth or something? Like that there's no summers there? And I mean, it's not like Montreal is like a beacon of beaches and sunlight either, right? So it's
it goes to south of France and it goes to West Isle. I believe that's how it works.
Yeah, it's mostly Cannes down here, mostly
the prairies right here.
Okay, as he go.
So hockey, right?
Yeah, exactly. Hockey sports. Mark, just looking at the first two games of this series, what have kind of been the main takeaways, right? Because you mentioned Carey Price, and he's been great. He hasn't had to steal games, but he's continued his play from the Leafs series. But what are you kind of seeing as what's happening in terms of the Jets' inability to create offense? Because we know Price is still a very good goaltender. He might not be the Price from the 2010 Olympics, but he's still really good. Picked up his 8th shutout in the playoffs. But is it just that the Habs are completely stifling the Jets' offense? Because it seems like that neutral zone is quicksand right now.
Jacques Lemaire would be very proud of the Habs right now. Yes. I mean, if we're being perfectly honest, someone said to me, they're so boring right now. They're just shutting down everything. They're letting, Price clean up the scraps. And I'm like, good. Like, this team isn't talented enough to run and gun with the Jets. You look at that depth. And to me, game 2 was a huge wake-up call to the Habs. You're not going to be able to hold on to a 1-0 lead against the Jets. Like, Connor's going to wake up. We know this. There's a lot of talent in that lineup. And if they kind of fall back in that defensive shell like we saw in the essentially the second half of the game when the Jets woke up, I think that's going to be a big issue for Montreal. Like Price, you can't dano your way to victory like you did against Matthews in this case. Obviously, again, losing Scheifele, huge like blessing for the Habs in terms of the defensive assignments, but there's still so much talent there. So I think the Habs have done a pretty good job counterpunching, laying low, playing a boring style if we're being perfectly honest. But boring doesn't matter if you keep winning games. Like I think with this roster, and if we're being objective, it's the right style to go with. Like, and it might, like yesterday, I have to admit, and I think you guys will admit it too, it wasn't the greatest hockey game. But
it was the worst, Mark. It was
genuinely.
It was. I said it was one of the worst hockey games I've ever watched.
I mean, like at one point the Jets were defending a 0-1 deficit. I'm like, what? Like they're not even. But you're right. It was the Habs were stifling them in the neutral zone, and fans will never watch it again. Coaches will marry the game tape on that. Like they'll be thrilled. So I think another thing for the Habs is that their young guys have been stepping up. Caulfield isn't scoring, but he's putting a ton of shots on net, right? Like he's reminding me of like early Patrick Laine without the goals, and he could identify his goalie in a police lineup. So that's the big difference there. But other than that, Kotkaniemi stepping up big time, Suzuki stepping up big time. And what I've been impressed by the most is that they've really like just not abused, but they've run their top 4 down. Like they've ground them down in terms of minutes, and they've reacted fairly well for a couple of, it's funny, I say old guys, I mean, like I'm almost 40, so maybe I should chill with the old guys stuff. But the old guys, I think, honestly, like everyone's writing Weber's obituary. He's still there, man. Like, stop doubting Shea Weber. He's a model of consistency. I think Jeff Petrie hasn't quite elevated to the level he should be. But to me, that the Edmondson, Sherratt, I mean, that play yesterday, like that's what you want to see from your defenseman. So I think the big 4, so to speak, even with the increased minutes, have done fantastic. That's been a huge factor with the Montreal Canadiens. Now, will it last? Like you're grinding down your top 4 at the end of the first round into the second round. That's risky. So I think they're going to have to play guys like Kulak and Gustafsson a little more often, to make it through the series.
Mark, one of the things that I've noticed though is that Montreal's just rolling all 4 lines, and you're getting a lot of production like that. Perry, Stahl, Armia line have been talk about a breath of fresh air. I mean,
Right.
they've really kind of. It appears to me, and again, I haven't watched Montreal obviously as much as I watched the Jets, but they really seem to have elevated their level of play and they've certainly outperformed the Jets' fourth line. So if Montreal is going to win this, obviously it's going to take that line continuing to elevate their game and continue to do what they're doing. But are you a little surprised based on how well they seem to be playing?
I mean, okay, Eric Stahl was like persona non grata in Montreal for a while. Like everyone's like, hey, we respect him, cool, but like, why is he in the lineup? You know? And I think people remember that breakaway yesterday when that kind of reminded me of like, man, if Stahl was 10 years younger, that probably would have been a goal. But here's the other thing is that until Toffoli scored that goal, Eric Stahl was leading the Canadiens in points from the fourth line. You know, so that, Dave, it surprised me so much. But I think we have to stop disrespecting veterans that know, you know, it's kind of like a horse race, like a long distance horse race here. You're holding back your horses a little bit because you know, like you don't have that energy to run around with 20-year-olds during a regular season. I have to give him a lot of credit. I think he's been making a lot of good decisions. And we talk about bringing veteran leadership and you know, everyone criticized the Leafs. They brought in that veteran leadership, but you know, I've never been a big fan of saying bringing guys that won the cup. But if you see there between the two, the Habs veterans that had won a cup, they performed. The Perrys, you know, the Stahls, the Edmondsons, and I'll give a big shout out to Jake Allen, who was amazing during the regular season. The Habs wouldn't be here right now without him. Like, so that to me was the best signing of the year. And again, Toffoli, you know, another veteran that scored. And whereas Thornton, Galchenyuk, Foligno, like these are all guys that have chased a lot of respect, but they don't have that winning pedigree. So I will say I'm eating a lot of crow here, Dave. I was all about like, no, you don't need physicality, blah, blah, blah. They're kind of like, they won the war of attrition with Toronto. I don't think it'll work with Winnipeg because they match up very well, if you know, in terms of physicality, but it's not just the veterans. I think everyone was eviscerating Schaum. I think you have to give Schaum a little bit of credit here. Like, I mean, he outcoached Keefe, right? He's been lucky, you know, a lot of good players, like for example, like DeMello and Stastny, like the Habs have gotten a little bit of Stanley Cup luck, if we're going to, you know, be perfectly honest. But I think Schaum, for having taken over a team mid-season, condensed schedule, COVID, I think he's actually kind of coming into his own. I was a little hesitant to praise him, but I have to give, you know, he's up 2-0 in the second round with arguably he's going to be an underdog until they go out, right? So I think he's been doing a pretty good job, all things considered.
Mark Dumont is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show Saturday morning. We're live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms. And Mark, you mentioned how the Habs have really been relying on 4 defensemen and that their bottom pair, you know, particularly Eric Gustafsson, a guy that they acquired at the deadline for, I think it was a 7th round pick or something. So they basically got him for free. Yeah. Why is he playing over a guy like Alex Romanov, who really had are you
every Habs fan? Like, come on.
Well, Romanov, when I saw him this year, was noticeable for all the right reasons. Yeah. Yet to play Gustafsson, and where you clearly don't have more faith in him than 8 minutes a game, it just sort of I don't quite understand it.
I'll put on my coaching hat for a minute, which I should never wear because if I was a coach, I'd be fired in about 32 minutes. But here's what I will say. Let's keep in mind here that first-year defenseman, like I know everyone in Montreal's clamoring for Romanov. He's a little bit older. He has that KHL experience. The same thing happened in the KHL in the playoffs. They stopped playing him. He's a first-year defenseman. He's been through a lot, and he does make a lot of high-risk plays. I would understand more inserting him against the Jets, and I think that'll happen. Against the Leafs, like a high-risk play against Matthews, very dangerous. What I will say for Gustafsson, and this guy instills no confidence when he plays the puck, right? Like, he's terrifying. But he's really good at relaunching the play. Like, the Canadiens in transition are better when Gustafsson's on the ice. He has their best stats, guys. Here's the crazy part. Yeah, he's playing the most sheltered hockey you will ever see in your entire life. He's playing about 32 seconds a game, but he's crushing those 32 seconds a game. He had a really bad giveaway in game 1, but like, if I go full nerd, statistically speaking, he's been their best defenseman. Like, he's at like 75% control of shots, high danger chances. Again, sheltered. There's so much context to do here. And when you watch him play, it's like, holy crap, man, what's going on here? Like, this guy is so scary. But the Canadiens have to score in the rush, and Gustafsson helps them in transition. And that's very important for the Montreal Canadiens. So I think, again, Schaum took the right decision there. And I'm with you guys. I was all about wanting to see Romanov. But I don't think you can actually argue against how Gustafsson's played. And since he's gone in, they've scored more off the rush and they've started winning. So I'm going to give him some credit there. And obviously he plays with Brett Kulak, who I'm a big fan of. But yeah, all in all, I totally get why people want to see Romanov. But first-year defenseman, guys, like when did it become that now we expect our first-year defenseman to be in there? Like for my entire life, first-year defenseman, come playoffs. It could, buddy. You're number 7, and if you get in, you get in. But that's about it, right?
It's because we watched Cale Makar come play for Colorado, leaping right in, looking like a Norris Trophy champion.
I have a crush on Cale Makar. Cale Makar is unbelievable. He's going to win the Norris Trophy.
And like Samuel Girard, and you see all these young guys. Like, watching Cale Makar at the blue line just embarrass these guys. Like, oh my god! But Romanov does that, like the risky play at the blue line. I'll give that. Everyone's worried about his confidence. Look, you don't worry about Romanov's confidence, but he does those plays that Makar does at the blue line, trying to dangle 45 guys. Makar does it like jokingly. I think he almost taunts him. Romanov will lose the puck once in a while doing that. And you just don't have margins for error right now for the Montreal Canadiens. Like they had to play a perfect game against the Leafs, and I think they did. And Gustafsson, guys, for like the 7 minutes he's been given, has played really well. So I'd like to see Romanov too. No rush right now. He wouldn't have made a difference in the Leafs series if I'm being perfectly honest.
And I think there's a lot of parallels, Mark, with Ville Heinola here, right? Like he was the most outstanding defenseman at the 2021 World Juniors, but right now it's he's been passed on the depth chart. And yeah, Jordy Ben is obviously not as skilled as Ville Heinola, but Paul Maurice is going with the veteran to play on that third pair. Who knows? Maybe Heinola will play Game 3 in Montreal, but I think there's a lot of similarities there between Romanov and Heinola.
You're trying to mitigate mistakes on the third pairing, right? You're not going to get. Obviously, the plus side for Gustafsson is that he does create some offense from the back end. It's mostly on the power play, but you essentially want your third pairing to get out there with not a goal allowed, and if they get a goal, it's great, right? And I will give a shout out to Jordy Ben when he's played on the proper side. He can be a very, very good. I mean, I know he's slowed down, but he can be a very good third pairing defenseman. This is the key here. In his usage.
Yeah.
You shove him up the lineup, you're gonna have an issue. But as a third pairing defenseman goes, I think he can be very efficient. And Heinola wouldn't even get that many minutes, right? He wouldn't be. I mean, he's good in transition. Passes the puck well. But is that what you're looking for from your third line? No, you're looking for them to not bleed, essentially. And I think that's how coaches think about it. And it's so easy for us to criticize, but like if we go back, 99%, maybe not 99, but a lot of the choices coaches make turn out to be 100% correct, right? Like if we're being perfectly honest, we're really harsh on coaches, but most of them know what they're doing. It's almost like they're professionals in a job market where there's only 31 of them in the world, almost.
If we weren't going to criticize coaches, if we weren't going to be armchair quarterbacks, what the hell are we going to do on this show? And all of our
right? It's like anytime after a shootout, they're like, well, why did they go with the guys that didn't score? Like, oh. No, you're right. They should have gone with guys that score. The coach was like, "Hey, you're not going to score. You're not going to score. You're not going to score. Get out there." So, anyways, it's what can I say?
Yeah, and Mark, I wanted to final question here, just about the fans. Like, obviously, there were 2,500 fans in the Leaf series, and it seemed like there were 25,000 fans, to be honest with you. And I think I've texted you this many times before. Like, I think. Sorry to Bell MTS Place, but I think Bell Center Montreal is the best building in the NHL, and I think the Habs fans
they're both very good. They're both very good.
They're both very good, and I remember being there watching a Habs Bruins game back in 2005 after the full year lockout, and I was like, I'm lucky to be in this building right now. This is amazing if you're a hockey fan, but. The question I had for you is obviously it was a factor and they're going to get a boost. And I'm not sure, maybe you can clarify if there are going to be still 2,500 or if they've increased that. But regardless if it's 2,500 or more, what kind of impact are you going to, do you think that's going to have on the series? Because Dave made a good point. Dave was saying that he thinks that could actually benefit the Jets just as much as could benefit the Habs.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, there's two things. It's going to be 2,500. What day are we? Like, I go by game day. Are we? Holy shit!
They play tomorrow, Sunday.
It's June.
You can say shit, by the way, Mark. We're not on TSN anymore, so
it's June. Yeah, good for you guys. It's June. Oh my god! Wow. Anyhow, it's June. Okay, so I will say two things.
You paid your taxes about 3 months ago. It's okay though.
Pay my taxes? No, okay. So two things. First of all, I got to laugh at the Leafs. Like, listen, I took it easy a little bit on the Leafs here because we all know they're dead inside, Leafs fans. And it's like, the universe kicks you in the crotch so many times. You don't want to go out and like be the 12th guy to kick them in the crotch. But the arrogance that they had there, like we've played before fans, in front of fans before, and we've had lineup changes before. We're the better team, doesn't matter. It was a factor, absolutely. But as Dave said, and also it's going to be 2,500, whatever June, whatever is tomorrow, maybe 5,000 Monday. Quebec, I will give them credit. Have done a pretty good job getting their jabs in, so we might be able to go up to 5,000. But I mean, we're not in a rush to do that. The thing is, like Dave said, it's a double-edged sword, right? A lot of these guys can get motivated hearing fans like come down on them and boo like a gust of wind could hit Perry and obviously he'll fall over, and fans will boo, like boo the hell out of it. And there is some motivation factor there. So it's all about the fan factor. It's all about who jumps in the lead first. Like, not to be like every shitty analyst on every TSN show that says, when they score the first goal, they'll probably win. But if you factor in the fans to that, you're setting the momentum for them, right? So no, I'm with you. It can be a bad, but the key thing here is that, and this is gonna be super cheesy, like life is returning to Montreal, and the Bell Center is the mood ring for the entire city. Nice. When the Habs win, everyone's so nice. Like, people wait in line at the Metro. People wait in line at the Metro. You speak in English and they don't give you a dirty look. When the Habs lose, people are dicks, man. They're just dicks. Like, they're just jerks all over the place. Bagels are flying left and right. And it's like, so this, like, and not to be too cheesy, but the buzz is coming back to our city. And you guys have probably all been here. There's always a buzz in Montreal, like the life. And that got sucked out of the pandemic. I don't want to be like, woe is us, but Montreal without that buzz, without the people, without the team is Ottawa. It's a dirtier version of Ottawa, let's be honest. So shout out to my people in Ottawa. It's boring, right? So it's not just the fans, it's kind of like the entire city's coming back to life. Restaurants are opening. We're starting to get people on the street. And obviously the Bell Center is a big part of that. But we all know, like everyone says, when things go right in Montreal, things are perfect. When things go wrong, the fans will let them know. So I'm with Dave on that one. It's all about getting the momentum early, essentially.
Mark Dumont is a special contributor to the Montreal Canadiens. Mark, excellent. As always, you're a good buddy, and sandwiches on us next time you're here. Always appreciate it.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate you bringing on someone that works for the Habs. That's pretty cool. And shout out to all the Jets fans. I will say this, even though you guys we're talking about ugly on social media, my interactions, except for like the anonymous trolls, 99% were actually really reasonable. And I've never had an issue with people from Winnipeg. So, let's all move on here and keep trashing the Leafs whenever we get a chance.
That's right. We can all bond over trashing the Leafs, and we certainly won't accuse you of being on Red Bull, Sudafed, smelling salts, or anything like that. I know. It was awful.
God, the best part about the internet is everyone gets a voice, and the worst part about the internet is everyone gets a voice. Yeah, exactly. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. There he goes. Mark Dumont, a special contributor to the Montreal Canadiens, our good friend, joining
Mark
us
is an
on
absolute
the program.
beauty.
He is.
I get jealous every time I hear that microphone. I think our mics are pretty good, and then Mark brings out his big boy, and we're like,
yeah, I know. It's intimidating. We got mic envy, but that's okay.
We do.
Quick update from.
As long as we don't have something else envy, Drew, we're going to be okay.
Yeah, Ezzy, you didn't need to say it. It was implied just simply by the comment. You didn't need to go there, but thank you for
belaboring the point.
Anyways.
Thank you, Ginsburg.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. A quick update from the Winnipeg Jets practice or skate. It's not really a full practice, a very optional skate for the Jets before they head off to Montreal for games 3 and 4 tomorrow and Monday. Sparsely attended seems to be the words used. No sign of Paul Stastny. People who played in game 2 that are skating this morning: Neil Pionk, Christian Vesalainen, Jansen Harkins, and Jordy Ben. Certainly does not give us any insight into the Winnipeg Jets lineup for tomorrow. We'll hear from Paul Maurice.
Attribution. Who were you reading that?
Sorry, that's courtesy of our friends both Murat Atesh and Sarah Orlesky. They are the ones who are tweeting about it. We'll obviously hear more from Paul Maurice later on this morning. I don't necessarily expect he's going to give any answers about the lineup for tomorrow, but tune into illegalcurve.com for all the latest from the Winnipeg Jets game day or skate this morning, and then game day skate tomorrow. Of course, illegalcurve.com is your resource for everything Winnipeg Jets related whenever you tend to need that news. We'll be back tomorrow night with the Illegal Curve post-game show. That'll be following the game. It'll be a weird start time for the
5 o'clock
post-game
start,
show.
right, Drew?
Yeah, it's a 5 o'clock game, so post game maybe around 7:30, 7:40, somewhere around there. So a bit of a weirder time, but
it's right before you go to bed, so it's perfect.
There you go, exactly. I don't even have to stay up late tomorrow. For better or worse, that's when we'll be back with the post game show, and then Monday's post game show, a more normal time, right around I think 9:30, 9:40 for the post game show on Monday. So certainly a very busy weekend in store for us on the website, illegalcurve.com. Follow us on Twitter at illegalcurve. And of course, back here on our YouTube channel. And while you're at it, subscribe, hit the like button. That's all we ask of you. We ask you to keep the chat clean. And you guys did a great job of doing that. You guys and girls did a great job of keeping it clean and respectful in the chat this morning. On your way out, if you haven't already done it, smash that like button, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment. We always love the interaction and the feedback that we get from our audience. Want to say a big thank you to our sponsors: Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Linden Market Dental Center, Bernstein's Deli, Zappia Group Realty, Boston Pizza, and Seagram's. Support these fine companies, some of them local, some of them national. They support Illegal Curve Hockey. That's the important part. Support them so that they can keep supporting Illegal Curve Hockey. Dave Manuka's in the top right. Ezra Ginsburg is in the bottom of the screen. I am your host, Drew Mindell. Until tomorrow night and the Illegal
See you at the
Curve
splash pad in a couple hours, Drew.
You will not see me there whatsoever, Ezzy, and in keeping with our rule to not see each other actually in person, we've been going on another 18 or so months like that, and hopefully we'll, maybe that'll come to an end this summer. Maybe we can have a beer together, and then that'll be the one and only beer we have together because I'll regret my decision. But Dave, you and I can get together more often than that. Anyways, on that note, for Dave, for Ezra, I'm your host, Drew Mindell. Thanks for watching. If it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms.